This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
All right, it's game day. Let's get her going. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk, everyone. Positive vibes only heading into tonight's game. The lines have been blenderized, and the homestand starts tonight with the Jets really on the precipice of, listen, they're on the precipice of a few things. If they have a great week, right back in it and comfortable in a playoff spot, a bad week, and we're talking about panic time heading into the holidays right now. We're going to have Jeff Hamilton jump on the program. Jonathan Taves, who's playing on the fourth line tonight, will get into the clean line lines shortly. He spoke earlier today, as did the captain, Adam Lowry. We'll hear from both of those two members of the Winnipeg Jets, including the head coach as well, Scott Arniel, coming up in just a few minutes. The Dallas Stars have been rolling. And Owen Newkirk from DLLS Sports is going to join us. We'll get the latest on just the great run that the Dallas Stars have been on. And just in time to play the Winnipeg Jets, Thomas Harley back in the lineup. He'll make his return to the Stars lineup expected tonight as well. And one other thing, it's very different. I mean, I always love these Jet games, or at least I have over the last few years against Dallas, knowing that it was a great test of two of the top teams in the Central Division. Dallas has been that this year. The Jets haven't. But we always got Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger. And it looks like it's going to be Eric Comrie and Casey DeSmith tonight. So a little bit of a different goaltending matchup than we're used to watching when it comes to Winnipeg and Dallas. But big game tonight for Winnipeg. They are underdogs at home. Not surprising, as Dallas has been clearly the number 2 team in the National Hockey League. We'll see whether this challenge from a very familiar foe can bring out better in the Winnipeg Jets than we've seen as they've struggled over the last month and a half. We'll also bring in Jeff Hamilton. Lots of Bomber news to talk about. We got a schedule, which we'll jump into. Ontario Wilson is re-signed with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Cody Fajardo signing a deal in Edmonton as well today. So plenty going on the CFL side of things. And we'll dig in and see what Hammer's got for us as far as what's happening behind the scenes with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, as they have been reportedly searching for a new OC, but it's been a little quiet on that. We know Hammer will have something on that. And by the way, I'm sure Jeff will want to get into tomorrow's poker tourney. Don't forget, 8 p.m. We're doing it over on CoolBet. If you're at CoolBet, just click on poker, go there into the poker side of things. Go into tournaments, search WST, 8 p.m. And do not forget, if you've missed this, we're giving away a trip to the Costa Rica Poker Open. I'm going, Hammer's going, and you could go too. The top 4 qualifiers on Wednesday, as well as the top 4 placements on a tournament running on December 22nd, and the last chance on January 7th, will all get entry into the January 12th final, and the winner of that tournament will be wheels up with us 2 weeks from that, January 26th, for a week in Costa Rica at the Costa Rica Poker Festival. Unbelievable trip. So if you do like poker, it's our regular game. I mean, if you can't make it, come play with us. $30 entry. Heck of a lot of fun. $100 bounty on my head, Remis's head, and Jeff Hamilton's head. But Wednesday's your first chance to qualify for Costa Rica. So make sure to join that. We'll hit that. And then a couple Manitobans on the World Junior Camp list. We'll get to that in the upcoming tournament with Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff. Been a while since we've had Ellis on the program. We'll do that in hour number 2. Listen, just before we bring in Remo, Thanks to all the sponsors that make WST happen. Our partners at CoolBet, Princess Auto, Clean Line, Chud's Power Sports, the Winnipeg Jets, Rolly's Transfer, Canadian Club, St. Vital Dental Center, and Uptown Alley, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug. We'll get to a Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. And, of course, we will also get fan feedback for fansfirst.ca. Let's get Michael Remis in here. And, Remo, big homestand starting tonight. I know the recent play of the team has not inspired confidence maybe amongst the fan base, but inside that room, they know that they're going to need to be much better and be ready to go tonight at puck drop against the Dallas Stars team that has been second only to the amazing Avalanche so far in this regular season.
Yeah, big test on this homestand, especially after Saturday's 6-2 loss to Edmonton. You have an even bigger test against the Dallas Stars, who we saw here in the season opener, who've had an incredible season so far, who eliminated the Jets last season. How will the Jets measure up? They did do some line shuffling, and then Boston on Thursdays had a pretty good season. Washington, again, in this Ovechkin, possibly the final appearance in Winnipeg. I saw prices for stub on Fans First very high for that one. And next Monday in Ottawa, so 4-game homestand. Seems like forever since they've been at home. They'll have last change. We'll see how they take advantage. And we'll see how they respond after, the poor performance on Saturday. I don't think the schedule did them any favors, but, they haven't. It's not like they've had a ton of great play here on that road trip. So time to turn it around. This homestand starts today. Very tough test against Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we heard from Scott Arniel yesterday and, preaching positivity, going into this homestand. They had their first legitimate practice in over 2 weeks. They've shaken things up. Now, again, a big topic on the program. If you were going to shake up that first line, how are you doing it? Some people think that the Vilardi move to line 2 is a bit of a half measure, maybe not getting the change that you'd like to see that you might be able to get with a Kyle Connor on that line. But we'll see. We may as well fire it up. Let's get into the clean line lines right now, because this will be a bit of a background for everything that we're talking about when we hear from both Adam Lowry and Jonathan Taves. As always, the Clean Line lines are presented by Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years and the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. Captain approved. It's Alex Iafallo taking Gabriel Vilardi's normal spot on that top line, along with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. Vilardi moving to line 2, with Captain Adam Lowry in the middle and Nino Niederreiter on the left side. The apparent third line is Vlad Nemetsnikov in between Tanner Pearson and Cole Perfetti. Pearson scored on Friday against Buffalo. Perfetti stuck on 4 points and 2 goals so far this season. And then that final line is expected to be Taves, Barron in the middle, Koepke, Gus Nyquist, the extra. As far as the defense goes, Morrissey DeMello, Sandberg Pionk, and Logan Stanley and Luke Shen, the same defense pairings that we saw on Saturday in Edmonton, and Eric Comrie back in net tonight. Those are the Clean Line lines, brought to you by Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical. Remis, we've talked quite about this, but it is interesting to see, and I think it just speaks to where the Jets are right now, that, Lowry and Niederreiter, which have basically been the 2/3 of a very good third line, are now the second line with Gabriel Vilardi. Iafallo moves from that third line to the right side of line number 1, and then you've got Perfetti and Nemetsnikov and Pearson. Certainly Vlad and Cole, who have been big parts of that second line during these extended struggles, now playing a lesser role in the bottom 6. And, of course, maybe the biggest move of all, Jonathan Taves, who spent most of this season in the middle on line number 2, now finds himself on the wing with Morgan Barron and Cole Koepke on line number 4.
Yeah, we talked about this quite a bit on yesterday's show, the Jets have looked slow at times, and keeping two of your better skaters and Connor and Shafley together on that top line, is that spreading the wealth the same way that they're hoping to get from Velarde, going with Lowry and Niederreiter. But Velarde's a guy who can finish. We've seen him in front of the net. They've had chances, down there, but haven't been able to. Maybe that helps. And Cole Perfetti, will he get anything going here? As you mentioned, his numbers on this season, not great, with only 4 points so far. Well off the pace that he had last season. If you get some Pearson goals or something, that would certainly be a bonus. And Jonathan Taves, they've had him on second line for a lot of the year, moving him a bit of a change now with fourth line wing. Morgan Baird got off to that hot start. Haven't really seen that since he got injured, but go ahead, Cole Koepke scored in the last couple here. They rotated Koepke and Nyquist, so not exactly 100% on what that's going to be for the lineup. But this is what they're rolling with. We'll see how it plays out. I don't think it'll be much worse than it was on Saturday, and if it is, we're in big trouble, Les.
No, listen, I think I can safely say it won't be worse than Saturday. Saturday was a confluence of a number of things that led to what was, I think we all knew was going to be a long night. But, you can talk about scheduled losses. There's another thing about, coming back and taking care of business on home ice and being the best version of yourself. And we have not seen that. Or maybe this is the team. I mean, that's probably the worst case scenario, is that it doesn't get any better. And at that point, Kevin Cheveldayoff basically looks to blow things up. And listen, we're going to get through this week and see how things go. But I do think that this is an absolutely crucial week for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, you're looking at another 2-3 weeks without Connor Hellebuyck. If you can, and we keep on using this term, keep your head above water. I mean, they're one game above 500 right now. If they can, get one, say they're 2-1-1, you get 5 points out of this week. You then go on the road to St. Louis, Colorado, where nobody wins, and Utah before the break. If you can put yourself to a position where you're similar to where you are, maybe 2 games above 500 in and around Christmas, and waiting to get Connor Hellebuyck back, I think you'd feel pretty good. But again, the home record hasn't been great. And there's a real level of pressure and urgency on this team to make something happen without their best player this week. And that's why you're seeing the coaches go to the moves that they've made, although I know some would like them to go a little bit further, including potentially call-ups from the American League. And I'll tell you right now, in my opinion, if they don't get the wins and we don't get some forward progress with this team and the way they're looking on the ice, that is going to have to be part of what the organization does coming out of it, because, you're getting close to you're 10 games away from the midway point in the season. And we always say there's tons of hockey left, but there's also a lot of hockey that's been played. And so far, it hasn't been anywhere close to the level that we've seen in recent years from the Winnipeg Jets. And the level right now has them outside of the playoff line. And that is certainly not where they want to be. Let's get down to the room today. Big one tonight. We know the opponent very, very well. Scott O'Neill spoke about tonight's matchup and the Dallas Stars, tonight's opponent.
Their team, obviously, we know them really well. They're a Central Division opponent that, that we know. Obviously, faced them in the playoffs last year, and they're off to a great start. They are 10-0-2 or whatever it is, 8-0-2 the last 10, and it's just going to be one of those games. It's a divisional opponent. It's about the moment. I talked often about focus on what's happening right now, and no better way for us to get up and running and get ourselves feeling good about ourselves about beating this hockey team.
Yeah, and that was the back half of the question, is the opportunity that is there to maybe change the narrative that's been around the hockey club for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, I don't care what's happened the other day. We talked about it. It wasn't good, but now we worked on it. I had a good practice yesterday, had a good meeting. A lot of the detail stuff that we were hoping we want to happen, we need it to happen tonight against this team. And like you mentioned, they've got some top-end players that are playing real well. They got a goaltender, just player of the week. We're going to have to get to, and we saw them on the first game of the year. And so hopefully that these divisional games, they usually bring out the best in us, and I'm hoping that happens tonight.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. Very clear. I mean, out of practice, video, this is the team. This is what we need you guys to do. Let's see how they can perform tonight. We will see Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele skate together. Plenty of talk about what you can do to get the other lines going, and certainly much of our chat has been talking about, splitting up that top line. I'm sort of the opinion that if you really want to make that impact, it's Kyle Connor that maybe could be that guy on the second line. But starting it off, at least tonight, with Gabriel Vilardi skating with Lowry and Niederreiter. Here's Arnie on the thought process behind breaking up that top line but keeping 55 and 81 together.
Yeah, I've talked about it. I've looked at it. The one thing that happens when those two are on the ice, they're in the offensive zone a lot of the time, and it also makes the other coach make adjustments. He has to make adjustments in the sense that, especially now being at home for a stretch here, hopefully we can take advantage of maybe some of the, whether it's an icing and they going out against the other teams, bottom end lines, whatever it might be. But kind of doing that with Gabe right now. I think that just the way Scheif and KC work together, it's hard. I'm hoping that maybe we can get other people going, that Gabe going on another line helps that. Maybe Al going up there, can get himself back to, playing how he plays usually. And it's just trying to, get some. There's a little bit, like I mentioned earlier, there's a matchup thing that we're kind of looking at too tonight. But, I can say, hey, I can break those two guys up, and then, 3 games from now that we're not scoring goals, and then all of a sudden Casey's not scoring, and then I'm got to try to get him back going again. So got 2 guys up and running that know how to play with each other, and we'll just kind of work it that way for now.
All right, so there's the coach's thoughts on how the lineup has been changed, but what is staying together. And listen, I do understand what he's saying. I mean, that has been their offense this year. Gabe Vilardi's been a big part of that. I mean, you hope that maybe Vilardi with the bigger body can go in and kind of fit in with Lowry and Niederreiter and add a little bit of offensive pop there. But this is on everybody to be better. I mean, including the guys in the bottom 6. Although, funny enough, I mean, it was the 4th line that had 3 goals over the course of the weekend. Tanner Pearson with 1 and Cole Koepke going in back-to-back games. But they'll be skating with Jonathan Taves. And this is something that seemed necessary for both Taves and the team. Here's what Arnie had to say about moving Jonathan Taves from the second line, where he's been pretty much all season long, down to line 4 and moving him from center to the wall.
That's a part about Jonathan. He's been fantastic about everything. He just, to our very first conversation and way back in the summer, it was just, I want to fit in. I just want to, whatever I can do to help the team win. And I don't envision him being where he is right now, but I'm just trying to get 4 lines going, and I'm trying to get him going. And, it's just taking a little bit of the wear and tear of him getting, having to defend all the time in our end of the rink or whatever, not being in situations offensively where he can spend a lot of his energy. But at the end of the day, he's open. And I also have just kind of the way the lines are set up tonight. There's some offensive situations where he will move up. Like there's some situations where I can make a quick switch, and it'll be something that I'm going to look at. But for me, with Jonathan, he just wants us at first to have success, and it really is. You may say about the ego part. The biggest thing is us winning. That's what he cares most about, and however it comes about, wherever he is or the part he plays, how large or small, that's what he wants first and foremost.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel talking about the Jonathan Taves situation. And, hey, I'll be the first one to admit, I mean, throughout the time when we talked about the potential of Jonathan Taves coming back, I really believed that he wasn't going to be coming back if he didn't think that he could be an impact player. And I still believe that was his mindset. Listen, this last month has not gone well for him or the team. And I think this is certainly the right move. It's impressive that, a guy with his resume is open to this and just doing whatever he can to help the team. But it is a really unique situation. And, I'm not sure if you didn't pump some true serum into Jonathan Taves with how things have gone, whether that might have changed, his thoughts on coming back at all. But he is committed to the Winnipeg Jets. He's a member of the team, doing everything that he can to try to move this thing in a positive direction. And if that means moving to the wall in the fourth line, according to the coach, he's signing up for it. But it is a little different than just, a new player, a guy that's there in the first year, like a Gustav Nyquist moving around, because of, his history, the hoopla around his signing. But Arnie was asked just about the unique situation in managing Taves after years off and coming into the Jets in the fashion that he did.
For sure, it's new to me, but it's really new to him, and it's just that's why we're having these conversations, him and I. We've had some real good ones over there, like I mentioned this summer, but we've had some real good ones since the season's been going, and it's just, if I'm going to do something, I got to make sure that he understands why I'm doing it. And the other side too is that he has he's got a lot of knowledge in his head as well, and we look at different things that that may help him, and whether that's through video or just communication. And if I just stay on top of it that way, then the two of us kind of are on the same page.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. Now, I mentioned Gustav Nyquist. Nyquist hasn't played in the last number of games after going goalless as a mainstay on the second line and on the power play for the better part of the first 20-odd games of the season. Plus, here's Arnie on his message to Gustav Nyquist.
Be patient. It really is. Be patient, and he knows he's an older guy, a veteran guy, and he's been good with it. There's an opportunity. His opportunity will come again, and just take advantage of when it does.
Too, with the defense, what's it like to sort of the mentality behind the rotation, or how are you going to use those guys for now?
Nah, that's game to game. That really is. It's game to game. We'll just see where we're at game to game.
All right. Didn't get a lot of warm and fuzzies from Arnie on that question about the defense, to be perfectly honest with you. We're going to bring in Owen Newkirk in just a minute. We will have Jonathan Taves' comments and Captain Adam Lowry after we talk Stars and tonight's opponents, a very familiar opponent for the Winnipeg Jets, with our pal Owen Newkirk coming up in just a couple of minutes. Hey, folks, with the holidays here, many of you are looking to gather with friends and family, people coming in from out of town. Maybe you're getting together for something fun with people from the office. Why don't you head down to Uptown Alley in 1301 St. Matthews and take advantage of all the amazing options for fun that Todd, Nate, and the gang have waiting for you down at Uptown Alley. 5-pin bowling, 10-pin bowling, laser tag, an incredible arcade. Now, those fun carnival games where you can win prizes, win tickets to exchange for great prizes. And what a lot of people don't know is the incredible food and beverage options waiting for you at Uptown Alley. Now, listen, if you want to plan a party or an event, just give them a call at 488-0000. For group and corporate events, just pick your activities, pick your meal and what you want to eat, any add-ons, and their events team will help together put to a schedule and take care of everything else. They're also the best place if you are planning birthday parties for kids, teens, or adults. They've got the Bowl and Play special, the daily deal after 9 p.m. every day. And, of course, they've also got gift cards, which the gift of fun is always perfect for the stocking or under the tree. So while you get ready to cross off everything on that Christmas list, not only pop down to take advantage of the good times at Uptown Alley, but give the gift of good times with Uptown Alley gift cards this Christmas. They're waiting for you at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue and online at uptownalley.ca. If you're moving into 2026, our friends at Rolly's Transfer would love to help you take as much of the stress out of the moving experience as possible. We all know what that can be like. Rolly's, family owned and operated, and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Check them out online at rollies.com, and in the top right corner, click on Request an Estimate. Put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. Then simply let them know when and where you're planning on moving, what needs to go. They'll turn it around with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that Rolly's Transfer has been famous for. Now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, lean on the most trusted name in the game, Rolly's Transfer. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollies.com. If you do need your grill worked on, Dr. Terry and the great people at St. Patel Dental Center have been getting rave reviews from WSTers that have popped in there. Now, St. Vidal Dental Center has been serving generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans. And now have a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building, serving clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full array of dental services from cleanings and checkups all the way to things like dental implants. They can do it all. Find out more online, make an appointment, pop in and see Dr. Terry and the gang at St. Vital Dental Center online at stvitaldental.ca, and make sure to tell them that you're ready for the marble race on Friday afternoon and the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And just before we head down to Dallas, as we mentioned, there's lots of planning for the holidays coming up over the next little bit. I'm certain that many of you will be popping into your local Manitoba liquor marts. When you do, check out the Canadian Club display. We're going to get to the Bomber schedule and look ahead to next season. There still is a few limited quantities of those Blue Bomber limited edition label bottles, which is a great gift for a Blue Bomber fan or just for entertaining in and around the holidays. And while you're talking Canadian Club at the holidays, make sure to keep your eyes out for the limited edition Canadian Club Cranberry Ginger Ale. Right now, in stores and on shelves for the holidays, the great taste of Canada's iconic Canadian whiskey, along with cranberry and ginger ale, pre-mixed cocktails in cans. You can pick it up in 4-packs or 473 milliliter cans at your local Manitoba liquor marts or beer vendors, and then simply crack it, pour over ice, and enjoy. Happy holidays from Canadian Club. And reminder to all of you to do it safely and to never drink and drive. All right, let's get back to this game tonight and welcome in our guy, Owen Newkirk, down in Big D. What's going on, man? How are you? Great to have you back on the show, and best of the season to you.
You as well. I know the holidays are rapidly approaching, and Hustler, it's always nice to see you. I don't want to rub it in. I threw the sweatshirt on because Liverpool plays in about a half an hour in the Champions League, but we don't need a sweatshirt today because for you Canadian viewers out there, it's about 17 degrees Celsius in Dallas right now. So that's about 62, as we call it.
Well, I'm glad that this game is in Winnipeg today, and the Dallas Stars get to come in for to be honest, it's actually relatively nice right now. It was brutal on the weekend. It's going to get cold again coming up this weekend, but -8 right now. So 25 degree difference between the two cities. It could be way worse at this time of the year, to be perfectly honest.
I'm from Maine. I know what winter is like, although Maine weather does get cold. It's not quite as cold, I think, as Winnipeg, but I still laugh when it's not too bad. It's only -8 outside. That's always a good line.
Yeah, well, just wait till the high is -23 on Saturday, and people are going to that Washington game straight. It's the old Winnipeg shuffle. You get out of whatever car to where you're going, and let's just say it's a much brisker pace getting inside.
There's no lollygagging.
No, definitely not. Listen, there's been no lollygagging with the Dallas Stars so far this year. I mean, a very different story here with the Jets, who've been sort of trying to find their way, and it hasn't been going particularly well for the past month. You know, while everyone has just had their jaws dropped by what the Colorado Avalanche have done this year, I think it's maybe taken a little bit of the attention off of the second best team in the NHL, and it doesn't really seem to be close. Heck of a playoff run, and this team has picked up right where they belong, right where they left off. I mean, Owen, fill us in on the first 30-odd games for Dallas and how this team's looking coming into tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the results, Hustler, are there, right? They've been racking up points at a alarmingly good rate. I believe it's their second highest 30-game total, with only the 2015-16 Dallas Stars. If you guys remember that high-flying, offensive, outscoring our problems Lindy Ruff team that won the conference that year with a lot of fun. Ben, Sagan, Spezza, Patrick Eves, Patrick Sharp, Alish Hemsky was part of that group. It was a lot of fun. This is a different style team than that. Now, they still have some incredibly high-end players, as you're very familiar with from our playoff series a year ago and, of course, the season opener. But there's been a slow progression, and you have to be patient because Glenn Gullitson's system changes and the way that they want to defend are very different than what Pete DeBoer did, and it took time, right? The first couple of games were great. They beat Winnipeg, then went on and beat Colorado, then at home against Minnesota, and you're going, wow, 3 for 3 against the division to start the year. What a great start. Then they lost their next 3 games, lost at home in overtime to the the LA Kings, and it was 4 winless games in a row. And I actually saw some people on Twitter saying that Glenn Gulutzan was the wrong guy for the job. Well, since about that time, they have 2 regulation losses, and they have just above 800 point percentage. And it's been a little bit of everything. There was a stretch where really close games, finding a way to win either in regulation, overtime, or a couple of shootouts. Then they had that huge win over the Edmonton Oilers, which I'm sure Jets fans didn't hate, although it is the Stars. So there's probably a little sort of mixed feelings about that.
At least it wasn't a 3-point game. And
that's right.
There was a lot of goals if you were watching it.
And, I think what really stands out to me is twofold. One, the power play has been elite. It's been, it's not number 1 right now, but it's right up there. And they've had a incredible power play where all 5 guys on the first unit are weapons. So it's not as though a penalty kill can key in on Jason Robertson, or we're going to focus on Wyatt Johnson, who leads the league in power play goals with 12. You say, okay, well, let's take those 2 away. Oh, we have this guy named Mikko Rantanen over here. Miro Heiskanen is playing really well, and then Roope Hintz. So they have a 5-pointed star, pardon the pun, and that makes that power play really, really dangerous. The other side is their defense has come around, and the goaltending has been excellent. Casey DeSmith is going to start tonight, but Jake Ottinger has been on a bit of a heater lately. And this system I was alluding to has slowly changed. It's not easy, even for professional athletes at an elite level, to go from a strict man-on-man style defense where that was what they were doing to going to more of a hybrid where they're doing switching in zone at times during the, defensive zone play, to then not have to think. And you could see early, Hustler, there was a lot of thinking going on, and thinking is not usually good for hockey, but they have gotten much, much better, and they're starting to really limit the chances against, for the most part. Everybody makes mistakes at times, but this team defending is looking a lot better than it did maybe in the first 10 to 15 games.
It was, you mentioned Gulutzan. I mean, usually a team with the success that the Dallas Stars have had, not really in the business of changing coaches. I mean, they were a great team, back to the conference finals, lost to a really good Edmonton team. But I mean, at the end of that series, certainly with some of the comments from Pete DeBoer, you thought that might happen. Obviously it did. Gulutzan was seemingly a popular choice within the organization in the locker room to be added. And, we talked about him a little bit, but it was game 1 of the season. I mean, now 30 games in, how are things different with Gulutzan behind the bench? You kind of talked a little bit about the X's and O's, but just also about the way that he's managing the team on the day-to-day, albeit in the honeymoon period. Just ask any coach. It's maybe different at the start than it is, in and around year 2 or 3. Just ask Pete.
Well, that's the odd part about, as you said, teams at this level usually don't change coaches. Because, the honeymoon period is a thing, expectations are so high here, just like they are in Winnipeg, that there's not much of a honeymoon period. Because if things don't go well this year, and by well, it's absurd to say, probably have to get to the Stanley Cup final, there will be questions. Now, everybody's dealing with injuries around the league, and so maybe you can build in an excuse here or there. But generally, I don't think there's a whole lot of leeway and grace period for Glenn Gulutzan in his second stint as a head coach of the Dallas Stars. But it's been going really well. Obviously, they're the second best team as far as a record goes in the league. And the aside from the X's and O's, which is significant because the Stars had a good power play the last 3 years with Steve Spott as the power play coach and Pete DeBoer, as the head coach. But now they have Neil Graham, who they called up from the AHL's Texas Stars. He's the power play and forward specialist. And Glenn Gulutzan was the guy that architected the rise of McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, and others into, Zach Hyman, of course, into that unbelievably lethal Edmonton power play. Well, Gully will not take any of the credit. Every time we ask him and talk about it, he immediately defers and says Neil Graham is doing a great job. Gully was afforded the autonomy to run the power play the way he wanted to in Edmonton under several coaches, and he really likes that. He likes allowing his ability to delegate to his assistants to do their thing, put their stamp on it. I think it would be foolish if we didn't think that the head coach didn't have some, at least, sign off or, yeah, I agree with that, or a conversation. But generally, he's letting them do their thing. The off-the-ice demeanor from Glenn Gulutzan is very different from Pete DeBoer. Now, DeBoer is a very smart coach. We got along with him very well. He was fine with the media. Gully's a little different. And Hustler, I think in his own words, he calls himself a people person. And I think that's different. I'm not calling Pete DeBoer unfriendly or cold or anything like that, because it wasn't. And frankly, in a couple of very nice personal moments, he had nice things to say. I lost my dad a couple of years ago to cancer, and he pulled me aside and said some really nice things. And so, I'm not saying that one's better than the other. They're just different, right? I think Gully is a bit more of I like to talk and be around things, and he has a bit just a different style, especially when he does his media availabilities, and that's very noticeable. Because I'm not in the dressing room, I can't say specifically, but my hunch is that he's also different with the players inside that team room than Pete DeBoer was. And I think that watching that play out, we've seen a veteran group that maybe doesn't need I'm not saying that Gully's any less intense. I just think his style is different. And DeBoer's a phenomenal coach, but we all know that there's a shelf life with the style that he does. And I think Gully has similar intensity, but does it in a very different way. And that style, I think, is really benefiting this team right now.
Owen, is there anyone that's benefiting more from maybe a different atmosphere, the opportunities been given than Jason Robertson? I will say this as a guy that had him on my fantasy team for the last few years. Didn't keep him this year, and then it's like a kick in the nuts every single time I go to a Stars box score. Leading the team with 18 goals. He's just one off the team lead in points with 38. Seemingly he's played himself back into, or he certainly should be in very much consideration for the U.S. team that he was not on for Four Nations last year. How much does the coach, or was this just an off year last year for Robertson that sort of taken control and just been a much better player this year than he was last season?
Well, it all starts with health, as we've talked about with everybody. You guys are dealing with Hellebuck. I know Lowry didn't play the beginning of the season because of that surgery, and on and on and on it goes. You guys could list probably a half dozen names. The Stars get 3 players back over Sunday, and then with Thomas Harley today, and now they only have 4 players out on injured. That's an improvement from 7 or more, but still. So with Jason Robertson, he had a health issue last summer and had to have I believe it was a cyst on his foot, had to have a procedure. I hate the word minor surgery because surgery is surgery, right? Now, some are probably more intense than others. I'll grant to that, but he was not able to do the same off-season programs, strength and conditioning wise and skating that he normally does. He told me, maybe in October, late October, or maybe the beginning of November, that he probably pushed himself because he doesn't like to miss games to start last season when he wasn't really physically ready, right? He was ready for opening night. He didn't play any, he was he was at preseason or at training camp in preseason last year, but really barely was involved with the team thing because he was trying to ramp himself back up from really being inactive for a while because of that surgery. So his whole first half of the season was, actually, it wasn't the entire first half. It was until after Hustler, he was not picked for the Four Nations tournament for Team USA. And it was right around the holiday break, around Christmas. From there to the end of the season, Jason Robertson was one of the highest scoring players in the league. I think David Pasternak might have been the only one that had more goals than Robo over the back half of last season. Then he picked up that knee injury in the last game of the regular season against the Preds and missed the beginning of the postseason. And he was one of the few guys that could put a puck in the net against the Oilers in the conference final. And he started to look better than he did when he came back against the Jets. So I think it's not so much about a new coach or a system change. I just think Jason Robertson is healthy. Now, he had a funny stretch. He scored against Winnipeg in the opener. He scored in the next game against Colorado. And then he had 1 goal over the next 17 games. Real big lull, including a 9-game goal drought. Well, then he scored, I think it's 12 out of the last 15 games or something like that. He has 15 of his 18 goals over a 3-week stretch, really, where he's been basically the hottest goal scorer in the league. And against the kind of funny is that against the Penguins on Sunday, the Stars were chasing the game, and they finally got their first and only power play opportunity, which was surprising how late it was. It was in the third period. They got the puck around to where he wanted to, and Tristan Jarry just made a great save. Then he stoned him a couple of times in overtime, and then Robo hit the crossbar on his usually automatic shootout moves. It was just one of those nights for Jason Robertson, which is rare because we're so used to every time he shoots it goes into the net.
Yeah, he hasn't had very many of those nights recently, that's for sure. That's a big reason why they are where they are. Tyler Seguin out for the season. How big of a hit is this? Who's stepping in for him? And is this maybe going to put some pressure on the GM to add someone at some point this season, considering, the role that Seguin played on this team?
Yeah, and it's a big one because he's a top 6 guy that was right-handed faceoffs and winning. I think Gully told us last week that Tyler was at about 60+% on the right side of faceoffs, which of course he being a righty. And so with him playing with Hintz and Robertson, and both of those are left shots, you have Hintz and Seguin, that gives you that lefty-righty pair, and that messed it up a little bit from that regard. But he's also still a prolific player as far as his offense. He's really smart. He's a great vision. And just like I was talking about with Robo, Tyler was healthy this year. And so that he takes this funny fall from Vladislav Gavrikov at the Madison Square Garden last Tuesday, kind of falls into his right leg on the side. And it doesn't even look, if you guys remember the Mark Stone incident where he fell on Miro Heiskanen's leg last January, that looked, many times worse than what happened to Seguin, but it was enough, right? It leaned on that. It just popped the ACL. They have not, Hustler, yet ruled out Seguin for the entire season. He's on LTIR. He has to have surgery. I don't believe that's happened yet. I know that the team is planning to honor him with a silver stick presentation for his 1,000th NHL game on Saturday when the Stars are at home against the Florida Panthers. And he hit his 1,000th game, I believe it was a week ago now. Maybe a week and a half ago. And I'm pretty sure he's going to wait and have surgery after that. It makes sense. Want to walk out there on his, not have to use crutches or a little wheelie scooter or something like that. But to fill that gap, right now it's by committee. Jamie Benn's back in the lineup after missing the beginning of the season because of that scary collapsed lung he suddenly discovered he had during a preseason game and missed the first chunk of the season. Ben's looked pretty good lately, so there's one of your top 6 options. And Sam Steele's been the other guy that's, even with Ben hurt, was elevated to start the year because they lost Granlund and Marchment to the offseason, whether it was Granlund to free agency or Marchment because of the trade, both really for salary cap reasons. And I think that Jim Nill was planning on adding to this team anyway. But depending on whether Seguin can return, look, he's not as young as Miro. Heiskanen was injured at the end of January last year, and he returned in Game 4 of the second-round series with Winnipeg. He didn't look great for what his level is. He looked better against Edmonton, and boy, does Miro look great now. He's back to that. But he's 26. Tyler's in his early 30s. That's going to be a little different. So I think I'm not ruling Tyler Seguin out. Neither is the team yet. But, Hustler, to answer that question, if he is done for the year, the Stars have a ton of cap overage, long-term injury that they can dive into. And so that might help a little bit because, to be honest with you, the last 3 conference finals, the Stars have been using prospects and assets and calling players up as they continue to develop, right? The Stankovens now for Rantanen, the Maverick Borks, Justin Ritzkovian has had a good little run here. I don't know if they have a lot in the cupboard as far as assets to trade to get some of those players, but they do have some cap space, and that will be important.
Well, Owen, this is going to be an interesting one tonight. Maybe the Dallas Stars, a very familiar foe, will bring out the best in the Jets because we haven't seen that very consistently, and they should be a desperate and a team playing with a real sense of urgency with where they're at right now. Good times in Dallas. They just keep on rolling, but with a roster like that, always a tough out. I hope you have a great holiday season. Let's do this again soon, pal. Enjoy the game tonight, and thanks for jumping on with us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Everybody in Winnipeg, happy holidays. And, we'll see how the game goes tonight. Maybe you won't like me as much afterwards, or maybe you will. We'll see.
Yeah, well, we always like you. Listen, if we can handle what happened last spring, a December regular season game, but I will say this one means a little bit more, and there's certainly one team that needs it a lot more. We'll see what happens when we drop the puck. Owen, enjoy it. Have a great one, pal.
Thanks, everyone.
There's Owen Newkirk. You can check out his work along with a great team at DLLS Sports. All right, let's get back to the Jets. Jeff Hamilton's going to join us in 10 or so. But Jonathan Taves spoke today. And, we heard from Scott Arniel a little earlier about moving Taves to the fourth line, moving him from center to the wing, and the buy-in from Jonathan. He spoke today and was asked if it feels like he's been back in the NHL for 2 months.
It's tough to say, really. At least these last few weeks, I don't know which day of the week it is or which part of the month, and are we December 9th already? I mean, it's crazy. It is crazy how fast time goes by when you're just kind of like getting ready for the next game, and you're either playing every other day with back-to-backs, and it's getting that feel for an NHL season again, and kind of being in the mix where you don't really have time or energy to be focused or worried about too much else.
All right, so there's been a lot of hockey. They've been all over the continent playing. Now it's back home for a week, and very, very important game tonight. He will not be playing at center, where he has been the majority of the season so far. He's moving to the wing. Here's what Taves had to say about the positional move.
When it comes to like our little face-off plays and neutral zone face-off situations like that, where you're kind of starting on the wing, and you definitely have to think about making some adjustments as far as where you're supposed to go in our system and checking wise. But other than that, even when I was playing center, I think this year is getting used to coming back to my own zone, and half the time my wingers are already down low helping our D-men out playing that position, so I would just kind of fill in as a winger. So kind of got used to playing that way in my own zone too. So in that sense, it's not much of an adjustment. So but at the end of the day, regardless of what your name is on that board in the lineup, you just want to go out there and help your team. And I think we've been working hard as a group to break through and find some offense. So regardless of what it looks like, and the two guys you're going out there with, you got to go out there and help your line mates, put them in better positions and situations to make plays, and just go from there. So we got a good test for us tonight, and hopefully go out there and get things clicking a little bit.
So there's Jonathan Taves speaking about the move from center to left wing. That also coincides with tonight him starting on the fourth line. And, we heard Scott Arniel talk about that, his conversations with Jonathan Taves. Taves talked about the conversation that he had with the coach about moving to playing alongside Morgan Barron and Cole Koepke.
There's a little part of it where it's a little bit of a check to your ego, and I think I've always prided myself on the way I play at both ends of the rink, and playing a two-way game as a centerman. So the second you kind of see your name on the wing, it's a bit of an adjustment. But like I said, it's really, it takes you a minute to get past that and to move on, and to just be happy to get the chance to go out there and do a job. That being said, didn't think too much about it, and excited for tonight's game.
Right, so Jonathan Taves just on the move to the fourth line. One more from Taves, and listen, it's hard to really wrap your head around what he has been through. The 2-year journey to try to make it back to the National Hockey League, the hoopla, the high expectations, the start to the season, and then a really, really tough month. But one thing that doesn't matter what's happening around you, the ability to play game after game after game and be at that top NHL level, probably a challenge for everyone. So Taves kind of spoke and expanded a little bit more on the role of conditioning right now and how he's feeling.
It's coming along. It's getting better and better. And even, if you come in the best shape of your life, obviously it's always going to be an adjustment when you're playing this many games with the travel that we've had. So I think that's half the battle is what are you doing on days between games, and what are you doing leading up to games to get ready for the next one. And So it's not easy on anybody in this room, and it's the same for everyone in the league right now. So you do your best to keep adapting.
We talk sometimes about how, okay, it's not realistic that you're going to be as fast as when you were 26, but also you've got a really good sense of what the next play is. Your hockey IQ is a strength. Are there plays that you can see now that you might not have seen once upon a time?
I think it's everyone on the ice is so skilled nowadays, and the game is so fast. There's not a lot of room. Teams check so well, so there's tons of little skills that you constantly have to be working on. And I think for me too, it's not just when I have the puck and getting my feet moving and creating space for myself, but it's playing a little bit better without the puck and being a little bit more of a threat to be a shooter in certain areas when my teammates or my line mates have the puck. And so I think it's all over the rink right now at working on little things to make improvements and to play better with the puck and without it as well. So but yeah, it always helps when you got that extra jump, a little extra step that you can bail yourself out when you make mistakes or your timing's a little off. So just trying to focus on all those little details right now.
All right, there's Jonathan Taves. And Remo, interesting to hear Taves, speak so openly about the challenges that, he's been having, the team has been having. And I have to give him a lot of credit. Listen, I don't know the man. Certainly know what he's done in the National Hockey League, know what he did to make it back to the NHL. But I'm not sure if you told me at the start of the year, around the 30-game mark, we'd be in the situation that we'd be in, that he would be standing up, speaking to the media, speaking like that, and you'd be hearing from the coach that this is a guy that just wants to do what he can to help this team win some hockey games.
For sure, and you're moving him onto the wing on the fourth line. Maybe this is somewhere we thought that would likely start rather than end up. The results for him haven't been the best, but an opportunity here on the fourth line with a guy like Morgan Barron, maybe they can do something. Cole Koepke's got some speed. You do see, his hockey IQ out there on the ice, but it's tough coming back, 2 years away, getting into your late 30s. Although we did just see Phil Rivers sign with the Colts at 44 after not playing since 2020. So crazier things, in fact, have happened or are about to happen. So maybe there is a recipe here where fourth line, limited minutes. And I agree with Mike yesterday. Maybe they need to be more active with something like load management, sitting on back-to-backs like you had on the weekend. So, we'll get another look here at Taves on the fourth line with Morgan Barron and Cole Koepke.
Listen, we've spent a lot of time talking about the first line, and I get it. But I do want to fire out the why not question of the day today for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray to you all about the Taves move. What do you think about the way the team has handled Taves and is handling them right now with a move off of center to the wing and to the fourth line with a couple of legitimately fast players, particularly in Morgan Barron? Let us know in the chat for the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp. We'll get to some fan feedback from you a little bit later on. The Hammer's going to be joining us right away, but why don't we hear quickly from Adam Lowry? The captain of the Winnipeg Jets spoke as well. Here's what he had to say about the Jets team game overall and trying to get this thing back on the right track and into a playoff spot.
The stretch we've been on hasn't gone how we'd like it to go. That there's still so much season left, and not that you have ample time. We want to right the ship and get going in the right direction, but we're still right in the mix. I think for how poorly the results have gone over the last month and a little bit, we're still right there, and we feel like there's some more levels to our game that we need to get to. And we had a good practice day yesterday where we talked about some things, and we're going to look to go implement those into the game tonight, and like you said, hopefully start this homestand on the right foot.
There's Adam Lowry speaking about getting off to a good start tonight against the Dallas Stars. He, of course, is playing with Gabe Vilardi tonight, and a very familiar winger with him Nino Niederreiter. Here's Lowry on trying to find some chemistry with the new setup on his line.
Yeah, I think over the last few years we've been so fortunate not having a lot of injuries, not, really going into these extended slumps, not having to, try and, find some different combinations just to get some guys going. I think, the important thing is talking to whoever comes on the line and kind of what you want to accomplish, what they see out there, how they like to play, just so that you can kind of mesh those two ideologies and, try and get the best out of everyone. I think having Gabe come to the line, he's so good in tight spaces. He's really good at creating plays down low, getting to the net front. His hands around there are unbelievable. And I look at what Nino and I want to do and cycle pucks and create chances off the cycle and off the forecheck and try and retrieve those pucks and let Gabe kind of work some magic and then play low in RD zone and kind of spend as little time as possible in there so that we can get the puck to one of our best goal scorers.
There it is, and you know what? I am interested to see how this line looks, Reem. Listen. I mean, I think I was pretty clear the last little bit. I think that if they were going to go and split the line up, I mean, I would have started with Kyle Connor to sort of really be an offensive cog down there. But there is something to the mix of adding Gabe Vilardi there, a guy that is good on the wall, playing with two players that certainly are known to muck it up, to be able to grind, to be able to cycle. And as it pertains to being a trigger man, Gabe Vilardi has shown consistently this year that if you get the puck on his stick in scoring areas, he's able to turn that light on.
Yeah, 100%. I did enjoy the Connors comments yesterday, just recalling the Game 7 against St. Louis. Where was the line? Connor, Lowry, was it Perfetti in there? Or I forget what it was. Anyways, yeah, we'll see how it goes tonight. Vilardi, maybe he can give some scoring touch to the second line, put Lowry and Niederreiter as well. Big guys. You saw how well they've worked together. Let's take a look. You got to try something. It hasn't really worked lately. This is what they're going with, and going to be a tough test tonight against Dallas. I'll say that.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Oh,
it was Connor, Lowry, and Iafallo when he was speaking about that yesterday. And there he is in the chat, always on it. Let's see here. So we've got some. Let's get to fan first. There's lots of fan feedback on the Taves question. Let's do this is fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market, where what you see is what you pay. No added fees. Phyllis mentioning that Koepke is the other guy on that line, scored in consecutive games and has 3 points in the last two. I mean, they really needed some scoring from somewhere. I think that if you thought that was coming from the fourth line, that might have been the last place it came from. But two massive goals against Buffalo, a garbage time goal on Saturday night. Maybe they can keep the hot streak going and get Jonathan Taves involved, albeit maybe in some limited minutes. The Barflies say, why put an anchor around Barron's neck? I mean, listen, guys, you could say that about like the entire bottom six. I mean, it's not like Morgan Barron's been just crushing it lately. We'd love to see him. We'd love to see him do that. Tracy O, Taves can be a playmaker, and if Barron can finish it, it could be good. Comment 85, comment saying JT taking disrespect really well. Barflies, if you can sit Nyquist, you can sit Taves. And then let's see, there's a couple of one. Ajax, to me, JT is struggling and playing at both ends. He seems to exist in the mushy middle, not deep enough at either end. And boring Sean Monahan, JT struggling with speed. Moving to center to wing is the right move, less defensive responsibility. All right, let's keep it coming in the chat. Fans First, fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. All right, I think the Hammer's going to be joining us in a couple minutes. Before we do that, though, let me shout out our friends at Princess Auto. Wonderful support we've received for years from Princess Auto, as they've done for so many of our sporting institutions, including the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Winnipeg Jets. Princess Auto, really synonymous with Winnipeg, as they're founded and headquartered right here in the Peg, and now serving Canadians coast to coast with the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new or cross off that special gift for Christmas waiting for you at Princess Auto. In Winnipeg, visit them on Panet Road or Portage Avenue West. Also out in Brandon for our friends at Westman. And as always, you can check out the great deals and shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Speaking of the holidays and a little snow, Terminator and the Chuds gang out at Chuds Power Sports are ready for the snow to fly, and they are ready for the holidays. It's the best gifts don't go under the tree. They come from Chuds Power Sports. Enjoy holly jolly savings across every department. And don't forget to browse their online parts store at truenorthparts.com for Christmas specials that slay the competition. Holiday must-haves this December include ATVs, side-by-sides, personal transportation, and commercial XTVs, not to mention ice fish houses, RVs, gear and accessories. And with snowmobile season arrived, brand new Polaris and Arctic Cat sleds. This is the Christmas gift that guarantees excitement. Pop down and see the wonderful people at Chuds Power Sports taking care of the community. For over 80 years, Manitoba's undisputed power sports superstore, corner of Highway 8 and 231, and online at chudspowersports.com. And while we're talking about Christmas, Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery invite you to give the gift of power this year. Now, first and foremost, you got to make sure you get to Christmas, and it's going to be gnarly on the weekend. You can pop by your local Manitoba Battery on Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive for a free battery test. And if you need a new battery, you'll get the best price in town. But right now, you can give the gift of power at Manitoba Battery with some great deals, including $5 to $10 off the incredible low prices on power sport batteries, $10 to $20 off booster packs for you ice fishermen and fishing people, $99 for the ice fishing flasher battery combo, 12-foot booster cables for under $20, and of course, you've got gift cards as well for the gift of power from Manitoba Battery, your local option. Best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, best customer service, delivery citywide inside the perimeter. And of course, you can also order it all online at manitobabattery.com. All right, we got to get to the Bomber schedule, a big signing today, and much more. Let's bring in Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. You may know him as three-time WST Poker champion. You'll have a chance to take a shot at him tomorrow night and qualify for the finals on January 12th to potentially accompany Hammer and myself down to Costa Rica for the Poker Open. Have you been tanning already? Have you been getting ready for the end of January and what could be a triumphant run in the big tourney down in Central America?
Huss, I've been visualizing the sun since the moment it started to dip cold. So it's been about, 3 weeks now? I mean, I know we got a fall this year, so I'm not going to be overly complaining, but I've certainly been thinking of the sun. I will move to I've actually been really careful about the sun these days. I'm kind of that loser who now looks at the most sun protection from suntan lotion, the SPF 50s and 40s, and you use those and you don't get the color that you used to get. It's unfortunate, but I think as I inch towards 40, gulp, health has kind of been front of mind for me. So take that. So no, I have not been going to the tanning booths. I've just been getting ready. And plus, from what I understand, I'm going to be spending a lot of time indoors, Huss, in Costa Rica. So I don't know if unless the final table is being showcased on the rooftop in one of these beautiful restaurants Costa Rica has or convention centers, I imagine I'll be lacking the vitamin D throughout the tournament play.
That is the plan tomorrow. 8 p.m. We're going to get going. It's over at Coolbet. Click on poker and then go into tournaments. There's a little magnifying glass thing. Search WST. It'll come up. It's a regular tournament, $100 bounty on my head, Remis's head, Hammer's head. But the top 4 finishers will get tickets for the final on January 12th for the big poker festival that I was at last year. Really looking forward to having Hammer come and see what we can do, along with whoever wins the final on January 12th. Listen, I want to dive into the Bomber news in a minute, but just quickly, I mean, we had a great Jets conversation last week. Last week was what it was. I mean, an embarrassment in Buffalo, a better game, but frankly, I think Eric Comrie sort of grabbed the point for them. Comrie was really strong against the Buffalo game at home where they got 2 points. And then almost predictably, based on a number of variables, a very ugly night in Edmonton. Jeff, how high are the stakes for this team this week with 4 games at home, starting tonight against the Dallas Stars, knowing that Connor Hellebuck is still weeks away from returning, and the Jets on the verge, if they don't keep their heads above water, to becoming a below 500 team with a lot of catching up to do when their all-star returns?
Yeah, I'll hat tip friend and colleague Ken Wiebe, who kind of addressed this issue in the Winnipeg Free Press, talking about it as Ken often does, right? Ken, nestling in there a little bit, not saying full on must win, but it's getting to that situation. And I tend to agree with him in the sense that it's not must-win territory right now, Huss, because if you look at the standings, and I know there's teams in between you, but you're not far off from a playoff spot. Like the West has kind of been, for a weird way, not living up to their end of the deal and being such a difficult place to be. Like hovering in around 500, you're not drowning in the Western Conference now. But the issue here, Huss, is that if you don't turn things around, and take comments from Adam Lowry, right? You wish you could forget exactly what the numbers were, 10, 15 points in one game. But the reality is you max out at 2. And if you're going to climb back into this, into the playoffs, back into a race to being, Gulp contender that many had you at, you have to start with 1 game. And the reality is there's going to be some weird scheduling stuff, right? Like there's not, obviously with the Olympics coming up here in a couple months, there's going to be that timely break. So there's a lot of games leading up to that time. And if you don't get the feeling going, you don't get that confidence going, because really that's, I think, the Jets' biggest issue in any team that's struggling to put together victories or put together consistent play is your confidence is at an all-time low, right? So how do you work to get that confidence back? We all know it's the holiday season. They get a small break, for Christmas, and then kind of come back to it. So it's to me, and I think to a lot of people just in general, like it's not about making up all that ground that you may have given up in recent weeks. It's about finding that game, tinkering with your lines. We know, obviously breaking up that top line is a major development for this team, given, how often we've seen that trio of Velarde and Connor and Scheifele go out, night in, night out and produce. We'll see what happens with those changes, but you need to get that confidence back in scoring, right? And that's the biggest challenge, right? You can have the best goalie in the world, and the Jets do more often than not when Connor Hellebuck's healthy and ready, but if you're not scoring enough goals, you're not producing, you're not finding those games where your top line isn't having it and the other group is kind of complementing, that's just not working for the Jets. And again, that all comes back to confidence and the style in which you play. You always hear, we know what the blueprint is, we just have to get it done. The Jets have won a lot of regular season games over the last few years. They got to get back to that, get back to an identity. Obviously the roster is much different, or significantly different than previous years in personnel, but that mindset still needs to be there. And I think that's, with confidence comes that mindset, and the Jets need to find that sooner than later.
Yeah. And of course the menu for this week, no pushovers. I mean, starting off with probably the biggest test. I mean, Dallas, who has been right behind Colorado at the top of the league, the West and the division. That's the sort of funny thing right now. I mean, we're talking about the wild card race, and the Jets are sort of right in there with a bunch of teams. They're almost getting lapped by the teams at the top of the division. For a team that won the President's Trophy last year and finished ahead of all of them, it is certainly not the situation that they thought that they would be in. And now, Jeff, when you look at the standings for the wild card spot, Edmonton is sort of, getting it going a little bit. They've won 2 in a row. But again, everyone has just been 5-4-1, 5-5, 3-6-1 in their last 10. But if you grant Edmonton which I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt, knowing the way their last couple seasons have started with the talent they have. They're going to be a playoff team. And if you give, I mean, listen, LA, Vegas, and the Ducks have all had great starts. They're far enough ahead that it's unlikely that they'll, bow out. You're looking at 3 teams in Minnesota, Dallas, and Colorado, more so Dallas and Colorado, that are really just, Minnesota could go through a slump and maybe come back to it. But basically, one spot for San Jose, Utah, Chicago, the Winnipeg Jets, the Kraken, and I guess we'll even include the St. Louis Blues. They're 1 game under 500 right now. But for the Jets, they just need, they have to be able to stick around that area during this time Hellebuck is out and hope that makes a big difference when he comes back. But again, I think you got to say that it hasn't really been goaltending that has been the issue for the Winnipeg Jets. It goes back to, and this is what the coaching staff and Scott O'Neill, I'm sure, has been keeping them up at night. What the heck do they do to get a little bit more oomph in their game, to be playing with a little bit more speed, and bottom line, defend better, but at the same time, get something going by guys not named Connor, Scheifele, or Velarde offensively?
Well, you mentioned some of those teams, particularly Edmonton, and how, you're fairly confident they're going to figure it out, right? Like, who had the Anaheim Ducks, pacing the Pacific, right? You look at these other teams, Utah's in the mix, right? St. Louis, a team that's been down in the dumps for some time, isn't 1 or 2 points away from you. And so I mentioned that, Huss, because this is supposed to be Winnipeg's window, right? This is supposed to be, they're supposed to be comfortably set in the Central Division. And, while other teams seem to be improving, the Jets, I mean, if in the best case scenario, seem to be plateauing. And so, you factor those things into play and yeah, it's going to be tougher, but I go back to the identity of Winnipeg and there's one thing, obviously they're an offensively gifted team. And when they're firing on all cylinders, to use a cliche, they don't usually have a problem, scoring goals. That clearly hasn't been the case this season. And it's more than just an inability to finish, right? It's not like, yes, Jonathan Taves has done some good things, set up his line mates that, maybe should have resulted in some more production here, but as a whole, that just hasn't been the case. They're not faster. They're not a fast team at all. They're one of the oldest teams. And so, that foot speed, as we all know the importance in today's NHL game, you don't want to be losing ground to teams who are kind of figuring it out and are younger, right? Again, the teams like the Utah Mammoth and certainly the Anaheim Ducks. So, I really do think, while you can kind of look at this roster and look at experience, right? I mean, look at that, Huss. We're talking about the Winnipeg Jets and experience, something that they've had lacking in their locker room when it comes to long-term, playoff success. However, they've had that success in the regular season. They have the experience. So using what they've done over the last few years, I'm sure the Jets are still the first, if not in the top 3 for the most regulation wins dating back to regular season victories dating back to a couple of years. So they know what it's like to be successful in this. The problem is if they, knowing and getting the job done are 2 different things. And if you don't have the personnel, if you don't have the players to execute the system, you need to find them. And so I think that, I think with the Jets situation, especially if you're a fan of the Winnipeg Jets, I think you're worried as we get towards Christmas here. I mean, we've already passed the U.S. Thanksgiving mark, for whether a team is going to make the playoffs. As you enter kind of the new year here, unless things start to show themselves or start to, the Jets can go on a little bit of a streak here or even see some more consistent performances, even if I don't even want to say even if the results aren't there, but even if the results aren't there, if they're playing a game that is more fitting to their structure and the management and coaching staff can look at that and say, okay, I can see better times ahead. This, as much as we want to be critical of the management and coaches, these men know this team better than anybody else. So they'll have a better idea of what that game could look like in a longer term picture, assuming that they can find that game. If they can't find that game, if they can't find that level of consistency, I think you're going to have to see some major moves made here in the offseason, right? We've seen here the Jets are an injury or 2 away from kind of being decimated from, a standings perspective. So when we know how deep and important it is for long playoff runs to have, healthy bodies, that's, I I mean, we'll have to wait and see how that all rolls out, but like, you know, you need to find the team now. So I think there's going to be a lot of work to be done inside the locker room, certainly to get to a level of play that's going to turn into consistent wins. But I think as they try to figure this out and can do more than just play 500 hockey, I think they're going to come to the realization, or they should be coming to the realization, that help is going to be needed here. The disadvantage for Winnipeg, of course, is, you know, getting players. In the past few years, the Jets were in a prime position in the playoffs, right? A team that was viewed as, you know, maybe even a favorite to win the Stanley Cup. At least the last couple of years, I don't think that carrot, if you will, is going to be there come trade deadline, unless the Jets can do some things real quickly here.
No, for sure. And listen, I mean, I think at this point, when you look at the current situation that the team is in, you know, the guys that are signed long-term, the key, if you're acquiring players, is to hopefully have them younger, quicker, and under team control. And that comes with a cost. And there's not a lot of pieces. It sort of seems like you either have these established guys that are here, they're signed long-term. I mean, a couple of players that would have value, and a bunch of other guys that are on expiring contracts that might have a value to another team in and around the deadline, depending on what the situation the team is in. But you're really hoping that a lot of this could come from within, and that begs the question as to what's happening with the Moose, who's knocking on the door, who could come in and
like, what does that look like from within?
Forward.
Like, you look at the lineup changes here, right? They kept Mark
within the organization.
Kyle,
I mean,
but that's what I mean. Totally. So that's what I mean. So within the organization, so whether it's the Moose or it's the Jets, like, look at the lineup now. Like, did the Jets really anticipate Adam Lowry being their second seed, Vlad Nemestikov being their third seed?
I mean, it all goes back to the Taves thing.
That's what I mean. So you look at this roster, and I think you have to be really incredibly honest with yourselves and go, this isn't a Stanley Cup roster. Like, it's just not. Like, we can't ask Adam Lowry to be a number 2C, especially not right now at this moment, right? We've been asking Vlad. I mean, we're revisiting points from last week's conversation, but how much more can you ask from Vlad Nemestikov, who, you know, is not a goal machine, but has certainly lived up to his contract here and the usage you put him in? Like, how much more can you ask to do that? The question is becoming quickly, not much more. So that's where, whether it's a youth movement, like, that's the thing too. I mean, and I know people were like, oh, why would you break up the top line? And I know, it wasn't just us talking about it last week. It's been a conversation for some time, but it's like, that's what you're going to need to do, is ask more from your best players. And everyone's
pray
just
that
like,
it works.
Exactly. And pray that it works. Well, how do you do that? How do you ask more from, like, it's asking them to do different things, right? Like, asking Mark Scheifele to be a point per game player is easier than asking Mark Scheifele to take Alex Iafallo and a younger guy and be a line in the NHL and not cost you. You know what I mean? That is asking significantly more out of Mark Scheifele than asking him to score every game. Like, that's, like, some players get asked to do both. So, it's not like it's how much more can you ask? And to your point, Huss, it then becomes have we seen this before? Have we seen, Mark be able to carry a line? And then if it doesn't work, what are we doing to ourselves? Like I mentioned before, you're digging that hole if you're not winning games. You're not in a position to kind of like, if it doesn't work out, things are going to get, we have time's of the essence. So it's, that's what hockey management is. It's what 31 other teams are trying to figure out themselves, right? Whether that's trying to get into the playoffs, trying to be a team that's going to grow to be a playoff perennial team, or if you're a contender, it's all about roster management. And right now, the Jets, while they could go, say all the right things and whatnot, don't have the horses. They don't have the horses in some of the big gambles, the Jonathan Taves, the Gustav Nyquist, they just haven't panned out, and those needed to work, right? Those were all celebrated as potential answers to questions, but now that we're getting near in the 30-game mark, it's pretty clear we have our answer that that's not going to work out. So it'll be really interesting here. The coming days, the coming weeks, the coming months, something's got to give. And the other part, not to be all doom and gloom, this team has that experience. They have skill. Like, Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor are two of the best forwards in the National Hockey League. Like, they have the abilities. They have Connor Hellebuyck who will be coming back. Like, there's reason to be optimistic to a certain degree, but this team needs some major help in ways that we haven't seen for years.
Yeah, exactly. No one's worried about those guys right now. It's just that everyone else has just been in quicksand, and obviously the record speaks for itself. Just a quick Jet note. I'm just seeing Remis in the chat, and I'm not pleased to report this, but Elias Salmonson's been returned to the Manitoba Moose. I was hoping they'd give him a run of kind of 4, 5, 6 games and see where things are at, but doesn't
Hayden
look
Fleury?
like that's in the cards right now. Hayden Fleury will be activated. I would imagine that will be the corresponding move. Now, whether or not, it didn't look like he is in tonight based on the morning skate, but obviously things could change when we get to the rink tonight. Hammer, quickly, let's get to a couple quick Bomber notes. So we've got the schedule. Remis and I are going to go through that a little bit later on. Ontario Wilson signed today, as well as any updates on what is cooking behind the scenes for coaching positions, in particular the OC.
Yeah, so same thing, man. I mean, I think we're just waiting for an announcement to be made. It's going to be sooner than I'm hoping. Like this, there's no guarantee to this, but I saw Darren Cameron on social media, and he did say, like, congratulating Ontario Wilson about that extension, which is just the first of some good news to come. So I'm assuming, and as they continue to add on roster players, right? That's been part of, I think, the slowness to these signings or the announcements of these signings is because you kind of want to have your offensive coordinator in place, before you make these moves. Obviously, Wilson was already under contract for next season. This is an additional, and a guy who's performed the way he's performed for Winnipeg. It's a no-brainer to have him added on, whether your OC or not. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but I would say, for the most part, we should be getting an answer before Christmas. And, I'm not expecting the Bombers to be announcing this on Christmas Eve as everyone's nestled around their, the fire and the Christmas tree and celebrating the holidays. I think this should be coming out sooner than later. So I'm hoping by next week, when I'm here, we might have some news to kind of break down here. But I do think, obviously Tommy Condell has been a name that's been tossed around. I think Jarius Jackson, assuming he would be interested in that role, would be a guy who, had built the trust up with players. And I know that, obviously has been an OC in this league and even a head coach, for a spell. So I think the experience is certainly there. And of course, I know especially this has been an incredibly newsy week, right? With signings around the league and Bomber fans wondering, well, what about us? I wouldn't be overly concerned about that. A lot of these moves, a lot of these contracts that have been inked are predictable signings, obviously. And I think, a lot of these teams are strategic and when they do it over the offseason, right? I would like to think that the CFL has much less of an offseason as it did when I first started covering the league more than 10 years ago, but there's still efforts by teams to kind of schedule these announcements to keep their teams in the news, over the offseason. So that would be my explanation.
The one thing I was pumped to see Ontario Wilson come back.
Mm-hmm.
3-year deals. We don't see a lot of those.
Well, he was up for, I think so it was a 2-year extension. Yeah. So, he I think he signed when he came back that year and then next year. Right. And so you're seeing a similar thing with Davis Alexander, right? Like teams are thinking, okay, like if we have him now and like, obviously he wants to be here. So the conversation with Wilson's simple, right? You go to him, you go, okay, we'd love to have you, he's a young guy. Like how much are you thinking of the NFL, right? How much are you thinking of that? And the reality is if he continues to excel with the Bombers, his price tag is only going to go up at this time next season. So you get the conversation with him, you find a good number that he's happy with, you give him an extra couple years, and now he's tagged through the 2028 campaign. That was Davis Alexander. He had signed an extension, but they created some news with an additional 1-year extension. So now he's going to be a Montreal Alouette until through the 2028 season, right? So, I do think it was smart to get, Wilson obviously locked up here. And to your point, Huss, yeah, like it's usually players do the 1 years. I remember I'll never forget, what was his name? Kenny from Winnipeg. I remember the old receiver. You know who I'm talking about.
Lawler?
not Kenny Lawler, not Kenny Lawler. Anyways, it was
He's
just,
a Winnipeg guy?
It's no, not a Winnipeg guy. Winnipeg signed him, and I don't even know if he made it out of camp. Maybe I'm getting anyways, bad story if I don't know the name, but I'll never forget or remember the name. I'll never forget being like, I signed a long-term commitment with the Bombers. This is the whole point of the story. And it was a 2-year deal, right? Because at that point, obviously, the 1-year contracts have been moved. And there's a lot of talk about the 1-year contracts. There's a lot of talk about the contracts before they introduced the 1-year contracts, right? We all know how unfair, football contracts are, NFL, CFL, to the player. And that you don't get there's obviously made some progress in that in that guaranteed money now. If you're with the team for an X amount of years and you sign a multi-year deal, those later years are half of the base money, right? So they've made some moves, but I've always thought this, and I know it doesn't work for fans especially those who like to buy jerseys with name bars on them. I never really seen it. It never really made sense to me why you would sign anything more than a 1-year deal. Because if you play more than your deal's worth, then the team's not going to want to pay you more, right? If you play less than what your deal's worth, then all of a sudden you're under the microscope for being cut, right? So to me, it was always, get what you can get when you can get it. And I know continuity matters, and obviously, being in one place for an X amount of years, that we've seen that in the CFL, we've seen that in the Bombers. Some of the key players, Willie Jefferson goes year to year, right? It almost feels like a slam dunk until it doesn't, right? Till it doesn't. So to me, I think it's obviously a positive sign for the Bombers, who obviously have reached a number, and as well as Ontario Wilson has reached a number that they're happy with. And, we'll see how it pans out. It's still team control. Could still cut him, next year if he doesn't play well. So I think what's interesting too is, get on receivers. What's the future of Dalton Schoen going to look like?
I was talking about that with Dusty today in the lock shop, and we were sort of going through all the receivers that Saskatchewan has hitting the market if they aren't re-signed. And I'm like, wow, I would be surprised if the Bombers didn't make a big aggressive push at one of those guys, not only to add them to their fold, but also to take away from the team that is now the one that everyone is chasing. And we got into Schoen. And I mean, they love Schoen, and when he's been playing, he's been awesome. But the last 2 years, he's just played a handful of games. And I do wonder if there's a potential for him to come back at a much lower base salary with an incentive-laden contract, that if he looks like the guy he was in the first couple of years, great, and he'll get paid that way. But if not, there's less of a financial risk for the team for a guy that hasn't been able to stay healthy for the last couple of seasons. And that's been a huge factor in the Bombers' seasons.
Yeah, I think that's exactly going to be the situation. Dalton, obviously the Bombers have a ton of respect for him. What he's done when, as you mentioned, when he's been healthy. I just think he kind of bought up all that leverage, if you will, last season, right? When he came off the injury, it was like, okay, we're not going to pay you as probably what you would have been worth if you had a similar season to previous, but we're still going to pay you like a top end receiver. I think now moving forward, and I think the benefit for Winnipeg, certainly, and I'm not saying that, he's married to the Bombers, that he wouldn't necessarily test anywhere else, but I do know Dalton Schoen enjoys his time here in Winnipeg, so it would make a lot of sense for him to stay here. And I think he would be the kind of person, and I'm not saying that someone who wouldn't like to take an incentive or be willing to take an incentive contract somehow a bad person or a different person. I just mean he seems like the kind of person who would be looking at his situation, looking at the very few games he's played over the last couple of years, and would take that prove it kind of contract, because I don't know if any other team might be willing to do the same thing, right? I think another team would offer him a contract, but probably closer to market value after missing the last couple seasons. So yeah, not a great situation, but not a horrible situation for Winnipeg. If you can convince him to take less money or have an incentive-laden contract here.
Well, we'll stay on top of it over the next few weeks. We'll hit the schedule at the end of the show as well. Hammer, thanks for doing this. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Looking forward to it. If you're going to sign up, come to play for keeps, okay? Don't half-ass your entry. Come play. You're going to need to. So let's get her done. Let's have some fun. And most of all, I'll see you at the end of the night.
8 p.m. tomorrow. We'll catch you there for the WST Poker Tourney. Again, top 4 qualifiers will get a ticket for the Costa Rica final. January 12th. Jake's going to join us a little bit later on. We'll do that. But Stephen Ellis is coming up right now. We did hit the clean line lines a little earlier today. Big shakeup. Gabriel Velarde going to the second line. Alex Iafallo with Scheifele and Connor. And then, of course, Jonathan Taves playing with Morgan Barron and Cole Koepke on line number 4. Our lines throughout the year are supported by Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years and the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. For all of your plumbing needs, both residential and commercial, Clean Line has got you covered, as well as heating and electrical services. And like the captain who has the backs of the Winnipeg Jets, Clean Line has your back 24/7, 365 with emergency services available in the Winnipeg area. For all your plumbing, heating, and electrical needs, use Clean Line, family owned and operated for over 40 years. Check them out online at cleanline.ca. We are, 8 days away from our holiday get-together watch party, December 17th, Boston Pizza, Kenaston. I know it seems like a lot of people in the chat looking forward to joining us. If you haven't made plans or a podcast listener, give them a buzz, reserve a table, or just come down and join us for what should be a heck of a lot of fun. In the meanwhile, great gift card promo right now at BP. With every $50 gift card you purchase for gifting, you get a $10 promo card as well. And if you need to buy for an office or a big run, you'll get an extra 10% gift cards for every $1,000 purchased. You can get those at any local Boston Pizza. And if you're staying at home to watch the game tonight, order online at bostonpizza.com. The Christmas push continues at Royal Sports, Winnipeg's sports superstore. Jets gear, moving, jerseys, of course, customized with your favorite player's name and number, ready to be opened up under the tree. Royals got it all. They've also got the entire National Hockey League covered with jerseys and more from around the league, not to mention NFL, Jays and Major League Baseball, NBA, Raptors, international soccer, Team Canada gear for the upcoming World Cup. And for all you hockey players, over $200,000 in sticks on the floor, priced up to 50% off. Great deals on hockey equipment. And, of course, tons of great gift ideas on the Kings Skate, Snow, and Surf side of the store as well. Not to mention the biggest snowboard department in town. It's all waiting for you in time for Christmas at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Check them out online on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and some great holiday gift ideas. All right, Stephen Ellis is going to join us to fill us in on this World Junior Camp coming up. First up, though, let's give a big holiday cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Counting down to Christmas, and that means the World Junior Hockey Championships taking place this year in the Twin Cities. Not too far away. Probably have some Winnipeggers and Manitobans making the drive down. Let's welcome in Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff to get ready for the tourney. Stephen, what's going on? Best of the season to you, my friend.
I'm honestly surprised we didn't get like a training camp like in Winnipeg or somewhere in Saskatchewan, just to be a little closer to Minnesota. But given I'll be at every day of the camp in Niagara Falls, it's a lot closer, so I guess I'll take
it. No doubt. Hey, listen, just first off, so we had the national junior team training camp announced. It just means this is a much smaller group than they've taken in the past.
Yes, because in the past they've done a selection camp where the whole point was to finalize, to put the team together. In this case, they've got basically just to cut one defenseman, one goalie, and one forward. So that makes it pretty easy. I think doing it this way follows kind of what USA Hockey has done the last couple of years, does what Sweden has done in the last couple of years when they've played in North America. So yeah, it's a lot more streamlined. It's more about like actually trying to put line combinations together and not who's going to be your fourth line grinder out there. And I think that's definitely the smart move.
Listen, just before we get to, who the guys are going to be leaned on for it, wanted to ask you about the Manitobans on the list. Now, I don't think we should be surprised that Carter Bear was selected. He was, a 13th overall pick in the draft. But tell us about Carson Carrolls, who is a draft-eligible player playing in Prince George from Cypress River, Manitoba. I actually had to just look that up and see where the heck that was. It is just east of Glenboro, in between Glenboro and Holland, kind of in that Treeherne area, south of Highway 1. Carson Carrolls, is he one of the guys that has sort of just played his way into the mix right now?
So if you asked most scouts a week ago, most wouldn't have Carter Bear on the team, but they would have had Carson Carrolls on the team. I think when you look at like Bear, the fact that he started the season injured and kind of started off slow, that definitely pushed him down a lot of depth charts. But then his recent play and the fact that he is so energetic, I think that really played into his favor to get a spot over someone like Merrick Vanaker, who is currently the OHL leading goal scorer. But then you go out there and look at Carrolls. That's a guy that you look at the CHL USA Prospects Challenge, and that was a couple weeks ago. And that's what people were talking about was, could Carrolls crack this roster? There was a few other prospects from the 2026 draft that were in the running, most notably Xavier Villeneuve out of the QMJHL. But with Carrolls, he's really good at the puck. He's so strong defensively, and he's definitely a top 10 prospect in the draft. And I believe it was Craig Button called him the best defenseman in this draft, or at least one of the best. So I think that's some really high praise for a guy that maybe hasn't been as flashy as someone like Heaton Verhoff or Ryan Lynn or Xavier Villeneuve, but has just been defensively stable enough that it's going to be hard to take him out. Because, yeah, they're going to have to cut one player from this roster, I think, or from the blue line. When you look at it, I think Carroll's being younger and Ethan McKenzie is more of this wild card option. Those are the guys that I'd be looking at as one of those cuts, but I think there's a good argument for either one of those two to stay. And that is kind of the great thing about this team is that they are bringing, it's not a battle for like 5 or 6 guys getting sent home at every position. It's like everyone kind of knows their role heading into camp. They got 2 games to prove themselves. They've got the week of practices. This is the time to shine.
So they're going to break it down. They can bring 25, but I'm just reading in your article, they're going to go with 24, which is going to mean 15 forwards, 9 defensemen, 3 goalies. So really we're talking about 1 forward, 1 defenseman, and 1 goalie getting cut before this team is grouped. This is, for the most part, the team minus 3 guys that'll get some bad news.
And there's still the potential for 2 more interesting players. We know the Berkeley Catton's out week to week, but it doesn't seem like the team is totally clear on how long that could be. If he's going to miss maybe 1 game in the World Juniors and that's it, maybe they bring him there and send him there and say, we want you here because of all your NHL experience. And then there's Sam Dickinson, who I will point out, the San Jose Sharks are playing in Toronto here on Thursday. 2 days later, on-ice action begins for training camp. I could say Niagara Falls is a lot closer to Toronto than San Jose is. So we'll see if they loan him out there. But yeah, so that would make it 2 more spots. But for the most part, yeah, this is the team that we will see playing. It was also a good sign that they assign numbers for every player, because usually you see at camp and they're changing numbers like every single day. But the fact they have set numbers shows you, yeah, this is it.
As far as the, we always like to see, which top players that are with NHL teams might get loaned out. Zane Perrick from Calgary, he'll be a part of the club. Are they expecting any other help from the NHL?
Well, they've got Harrison Brunick. He'll be joining the Canada's camp on Friday, I believe. So that's for Pittsburgh. No Ben Kindle. Obviously, he's been really good, a very good top 6 player. And then getting Michael Misa, who has been hurt. He's back to playing again in the AHL on a conditioning loan, so he'll be there. Obviously, Matthew Schaefer, no chance he was going. The one name we never heard, though, was with Macklin Celebrini was going to the World Juniors. Obviously not. He's going to the Olympics instead. But yeah, that's the thing. Like at one point, Canada had 8 or 9 guys that were still in the NHL that could have been on this team. Like that's unbelievable. No other team has like no other country that's participating in the World Juniors has a player in the NHL right now. So that just shows you kind of how the depth of these 06, 07, 08 age groups.
You know, the other thing that just is kind of blowing my mind is, I mean, I'm looking at this press release from Hockey Canada and just looking at the forwards. With the exception of Gavin McKenna, who will likely be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, every single Canadian forward is a first-round NHL pick. I mean, not a lot of guys coming off the radar at this point in 2025 for this squad.
Yeah, that's the thing about this team. Like, you look at, I just finished my Team Denmark World Junior preview, and that team, their best player is a Florida Panthers prospect. He's the only prospect that's drafted to the NHL on that team, and he hasn't played a single game this year due to injuries. Then you go look at this Canadian team, and your worst forward is a first-round pick. That's pretty impressive. So a lot of top prospects in this up front for this team. Like, you look at the Misas, you look at the Aginlas, the Bears, the O'Briens, Luchenkos. Like, this is a deep group. And I will say that some of the guys that are returning from last year's team, that obviously that tournament kind of ended in disaster for Canada, those are all guys that we expect to be impact players. And like, Luchenko was good in last year's tournament, even though he didn't have much offense to show for. And Gavin McKenna, I thought, even though he didn't put up points, I thought he still showed a lot of skill. This is a group that I expect to do a lot of damage up front, and they've got the goaltending and the defense to kind of also just carry the load if they need to.
You know, just quickly, you mentioned Veerhoff on the blue line, McKenna up front. Those guys have been sort of rumors being the number 1-2 picks. How impactful do you think the undrafted players could potentially be for Canada, considering the guys that are all across this roster that have been up at the podium and shook the commissioner's hand already?
Well, I see one comment here from Matthew Hyman asking if I can play us a song. You don't want to hear me sing a song, I'll say that in the comments there. But in terms of, you look at McKenna, I think he's going to be on the top line here. Probably if Porter Martone and Michael Misa, all three of them have kind of some connection to each other, playing in different showcase events, and I think that chemistry is going to look really nice there. Verhoff, he's kind of got a bit of an unlucky path in front of him. He's probably on your third pair, which makes that a nightmare matchup for pretty much any other team in Group B. They're playing in the smaller rink, while USA is playing in the Minnesota Wild rink. But when you're looking at the D-core, they've got Parekh on the right side, they've got Harrison Brunick on the right side. So then you got Verhoff probably as your third pairing defense. So his role might be a bit more muted, but I don't expect his impact to be muted. And then you look at Sweden. They've also got Ivar Stenberg, who's definitely in the conversation there for first overall. I don't think he gets enough love, but he's on pace for one of the greatest seasons ever by a draft-eligible player playing in a European Pro League. So he could get 40, 50 points this year, which is kind of unheard of for a U19 player in the SHL. So it's going to be just a really exciting tournament from those three guys. But if I had to pick a guess of who's probably going to be more impactful in Canada, I'm looking at McKenna just because I expect him to be on that first line.
Steven, how do we shape up against the USA?
This American team is not that deep. And I think it's going to be a couple of rough years for USA hockey. Now, I could be completely wrong here, but watching the NTDP's program from last year, this year, and then the one that's going to be in the conversation for next season for the U18, there's not a lot of high-end talent coming out of there. So I think right now this is their chance to really prove themselves. The one thing they have going for them is that it feels like almost everybody in their forward group is they're having career seasons. Will Horkoff, the son of Sean Horkoff, is playing some unbelievable hockey in the NCAA. Then there's Max Plant also having a great season. His dad, Derek, played in the NHL, and his brother, Victor, is actually one of the top American prospects for this year's draft. So this is something where we expect the Americans to be in the medal hunt, but Canada definitely on paper has a stronger team. But the Americans do have a lot of chemistry because of all those players that have been on the NTDP knowing how to play with each other, and we'll kind of see if they can gel quickly there. But on paper, it feels like it's Canada's tournament to lose.
Hey, before we go, I've got to ask you, and everyone in the chat always interested on the Jets prospects, how are things cooking with their guys, Kevin He and Kieran Walton so far? And were either of those guys even on the radar for this team?
So I wrote a story today about some of the biggest snubs, and I put Walton on there, and some people were surprised he wasn't on the team. He's never been part of Hockey Canada's program, and I think when you get to this point as a U20 player, if you haven't been on the U17 or any of the U18 teams, you're probably not going to be in the under 20 team. Now, Ethan McKenzie is definitely a different situation here, because this is a guy that's just having a huge season with the Edmonton Oil Kings, undrafted twice now, but has definitely put himself on the map. With Kevin He, I think the issue with watching Niagara is they are a tough team to watch. There's not a lot of depth on that team, and someone like Kevin He's had to do a lot. So I think, both of them are definitely still trending in the right direction. I think Walton showing that last year was not a fluke is a big deal. And but realistically, it didn't seem like either player was really deep in.
As far as their seasons go, though, just as prospects, I mean, should Jet fans be excited about their development right now?
I think of Kevin He, there's still the expectation. Actually, I'd say both of them are more bottom 6 level players at best, and that's still good. Like with Walton, you can't teach size, and that size with that shot and that skill. There's so much going for him there. I think with Kevin He can score, but his big advantage there is the speed. And I think guys who could skate like he does don't have a lot of issue finding opportunities in the NHL. And I think that alone, he should go out there and be an energetic player that should be an NHL guy, maybe 3-4 years. But I don't know if his goal scoring is going to translate. We'll see.
Stephen, what you must have a lot cooking at Daily Faceoff as we count down the next couple weeks to the puck drop on Boxing Day.
Yeah, I'm finished about 7 of my team previews for this tournament. They start launching tomorrow with Czechia, then Slovakia and Germany. Canada's will be out on Monday. I think between now and the start of the first game, I still have 26 feature articles to go. So there's still a lot more coming out. I will be at pretty much every day of training camp, and then I'll actually be at the tournament in Minnesota. My first time there. 6 a.m. flight's a bit tough the day after Christmas, but at least I get to spend Christmas with my family. So at least I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, it should be a fun tourney, and I know that there'll be probably a bunch of WSTers that'll be down there as well. Checking out the event is not too far to head down there for it. Listen, we'll make a point of bugging you and try and get you on in and around the tourney, but always great catching up. Hope you have a great Christmas, pal, and let's do this again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Good stuff. There's Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff. Give him a follow on X at @SEllis Hockey and check out all his work. There's going to be a ton coming up closer to the tournament from Stephen Ellis. All right, before we get to the Bomber schedule, and they apparently made a video game that you can play. I'm not sure whether Remis will do a demo of that when he comes on afterwards, but let's get to the Cool Bet lines and welcome in our good friend Jake Boland-Moss from CoolBet. JBM, what's going on? How are you?
Doing well, Huss. Listen, it's I know it was a tough one for your Chiefs this past week. It was nice to be on the bye myself. I didn't get to watch a ton of Week 14, so I should preface that by not saying. Not sitting here and trying to break it all down for you, but I did watch a good chunk of that Chiefs game, and it just feels like something's missing. Like, I don't know where
the
magic
to catch
is, but yeah, I mean, obviously that, but even Huss, you think about the last couple seasons, there's been times where, there was a couple key drops and we looked at it, is this the same Chiefs as before? And they've kind of found a way to get things back on track at this point of the season. And the fact that we're here and they're very much on the outside looking in, and as most people are saying, they're done. It's pretty crazy to think that a team with Patrick Mahomes isn't going to be in the playoffs, which isn't guaranteed, but they need some help now, us.
Yeah, well, we needed some help last night, and the Eagles, who are. You want to talk about, the Chiefs falling off. It is stunning what has happened to Philly. That game was atrocious on so many levels, unless you love turnovers, because, man, were there lots of them. And, Jalen Hurts doing the only thing that he hadn't done this year, and that's commit 2 turnovers on the same play. People, if you missed it last night, he threw a pick The guy returning the pick lost the football. Hurts picked it up and then fumbled as well. 3 turnovers on the same play, which sort of, in a long ways, was the story of the night last night. And then, of course, finished it off with the pick in overtime. The Chiefs really needed the Chargers to lose that game to potentially catch them. That's probably not happening now unless they do have a tougher schedule. I mean, they've got the Cowboys, they've got the Texans, they've got Kansas City next week, and they've got Denver. So it's not a 0% chance, but it's pretty rough. But I mean, as much as I didn't love it last night because I said for one night only I was Eagles fly guy. I am just stunned at what has happened to this team, to Jalen Hurts, and for all the bitching A.J. Brown was doing earlier this season. He had 3 brutal drops last night. Like, it is just weird for teams that we just saw in the Super Bowl, for highly paid, excellent wide receivers, forget how to catch and make such big mistakes, especially from the quarterback in Hurts at the most crucial times. I mean, that was that was a game that was played in a way that I could not believe. Like, I don't think either of those teams are scaring anybody, to be perfectly honest.
No, I mean, the way Philly's played as of late hasn't been fun to watch. You know, they really haven't got the offense going all season. And Sirianni had come out last week and said there's going to be some big changes to the offense. Well, if there was, we didn't see them last night. It feels like 2 years ago, Huss, when the Eagles came off going to a Super Bowl and they had a good start to the season, and all the Eagles fans were like, something's wrong here. Something's not right. And they get into the playoffs and they got crushed in the wild card round. I believe they lost to Tampa that year. And it was a restart. They figured it out last year. They got the Super Bowl, so that was a big deal. But it feels like that season again. Like, with all that being said, they're still sitting at the top of that division. They're at 8-5. They're third right now in the NFC. So, by all accounts, they're probably still going to be in when the regular season wraps up. But at the same time, like, do you really trust the Eagles in an NFC playoffs that's going to be quite stacked with teams like LA, Seattle, Green Bay, Detroit, if they manage to find their way into it? Like, there's a lot of heavy hitters right now in the NFC. I do not trust the Eagles where they currently stand. You know who the big winner was on the weekend? Was our guy Carolina Mike and the Panthers. I mean, what a brutal loss for Tampa at home to the Saints. And now, they're now tied with Carolina. Carolina actually made up ground while being on the bye. And, while we're at it, I've just pulled up the futures right now at CoolBet. And this is always the Wednesday before the Thursday game. Best time to get in for updated futures. The Rams are still the team to beat at plus 425. They massacred the Cardinals on the weekend. And then it's sort of wide open. I mean, Packers and Seahawks both at 8-1. Interesting. Like, I don't know how long you'd have to go back to see the top 3 teams on the odds board to win the Super Bowl, all from the NFC. But that's where we are right now with the fall of the Ravens, the fall of the Chiefs. The Bills are at plus 850. Your Pats are at 10-1. The Broncos are 11-1, as are the Eagles. And don't look now, but the Texans are right in the mix as well with that defense that they've got. They're 15-1. Absolutely.
Jags and Lions at 20-1. But the NFC conference winner, you've got the Rams at plus 250, Packers and Seahawks at plus 450, and the Eagles. I'm out on the Eagles right now. But is there a group of, like, if we're looking at just NFC odds, Niners 10-1, Lions 11-1, no respect for the Bears, who, I mean, did lose one game and they went from the 1 seed to the 7 seed, which is pretty crazy. Tampa Bay at 15, and then long shots to make it, Dallas and Carolina. Where are you at on the value on the board in the NFC right now if you're not going with the chalk Rams, who are the favorite right now in both the NFC and to win the Super Bowl?
Well, Huss, if you remember correctly, going back to preseason when we did our future show, I was on the Niners to win the NFC. I believe at that time it was probably a worse number than you're getting now. Yeah. Might have been 9-1 at the time. Schedule still shapes out pretty well for the Niners going forward. They still have a chance to win that division. And they really haven't been healthy all year long. I know Connor probably likes to hear. I still like the Niners at 10-1. I trust them a lot more than I trust the Eagles. Do you trust Sam Darnold at plus 450? Not after what I saw last year in the playoffs. Sam Darnold's a guy, he's got to prove it to us until I believe it. I like the Packers. I just don't think there's value there. So, I work my way down that board. I like the Niners a lot at 10-1. I don't mind the Lions at 11-1. It's probably where I cut it off, Huss, because to me, I think the Bears are a year early. I think Ben Johnson's building something there. I don't think they're ready to win an NFC championship or a Super Bowl just yet. They have every opportunity to prove me wrong. Bucks, the way it's going, they're just trying to get to the playoffs at this point, with the Panthers nipping at their heels. So, for me, it's those two teams right kind of smack dab in the middle. The Niners at 10-1, Lions at 11-1. That's the value I see in the NFC.
Yeah, Niners schedule, for what it's worth. They got the Titans at home. They've got the Colts without a quarterback. We'll get to that in just a second.
They're probably done.
Bears at home, Seahawks at home, in a very, very good spot. And, when you look at the standings right now, and I know that they've sort of been a bit of an afterthought, they've hung in there. They're one game back of Seattle and the Rams. They've beaten the Rams this year.
Coming off the bye, too, us.
Coming off the bye. They beat the Seahawks in the first week of the season, so they got the opportunity to have the tiebreaker over them as well. That Niner team that I think people have been off the scent a little bit, I'm sort of with you on it right now. How about this Philip Rivers story? Philip Rivers signing to the practice squad of the Colts right now. Hasn't played in 5 years. I'm actually totally here for it because, we know what happened with Richardson. This Riley Leonard's there. He's familiar with Shane Steichen. If I'm a Colts fan, I don't think this is going to be an adequate replacement for Daniel Jones, but it's certainly going to be pretty fun and hilarious to see if Philip can make it back in as a 44-year-old quarterback on a playoff team in the NFL, or what wants to be a playoff team.
Yeah, I don't know if bringing in Philip Rivers is going to be the reason the Colts find a way back into the playoffs, but I think it's a good story nonetheless. I don't know what he's going to look like. I know I did read something today that he has been, kind of working out. He's been coaching high school football. He's been working out with college players in the off season. So I don't know if he's been staying ready. I imagine for the most part, or he's just staying in shape. But, the way Philip Rivers plays quarterback, it's not like you need him to be super mobile. You kind of just need him to manage the game. You have good weapons there in Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman. The offense has the weapons. So if the defense can hold their own, maybe a serviceable play from Philip Rivers you can find your way back in. I just want to see what the Colts schedule is the rest of the way. We got smoked by the Jags last week. Doesn't get any easier. They got to go at the Seahawks. We just talked about it. They're home to the 49ers, home to the Jags, at the Texans. I'll tell you what, Huss. It'll be a nice story. I think the Colts are done. I think I'm ready to sit here and say the Colts are done.
I think that's
a tough schedule.
A brutal last bit. And, again, not to bring it back to the Chiefs, but, there's definitely some losses on the table. They would have had the tiebreaker against Indy, but it was the Texans game that they had to have. They didn't get it, and that's why they are going to probably be on the outside looking in when things going on. And yes, I see Rich Eisen saying the Colts signing Philip Rivers is a desperate move. Damn right it is. They are desperate. They've had a great season, and it's about to go up in smoke if they can't get some NFL-level quarterback play. I don't know whether he's going to be able to provide it to them. I don't know whether he's going to play over the next little bit. I assume it'll be Riley Leonard this week. But if we get the word that Philip has been upgraded to the active roster, there'll be a few more eyeballs on that Indy game. Hey, while you're at it, let's get to the Cool Bet lines for tonight. We got a busy night in the National Hockey League. Lightning, after the loss to your Leafs last night, Leafs looking good lately. They are in Montreal, a slight dog at -103, Habs -114. Vegas has won 4 in a row. They're -135 favorites in New York against the Islanders. Big game for the Senators tonight at home. They've lost 4 of 5 at home to the Devils. Ottawa -141. Flyers -175 favorites against the Sharks. The Ducks getting plus money on the Ducks in Pittsburgh. Anaheim +120. Anaheim +102. Pittsburgh -120. Canes -200 at home against the Jackets. The Boston Bruins +110 in St. Louis. That is an attractive number, I will say. considering the way those teams have played. I know Boston beat St. Louis 5-2 a week ago in Massachusetts. Dallas is a minus 143 favorite here in the Peg against the Jets. Jets paying plus 121, desperately needing to find wins. Buffalo lost in Calgary last night. They get served up to the Oilers this evening. Oilers minus 213. And then we've got the Avalanche and the Preds to round it out tonight. This game is in Nashville, but it is the 8:30 start. That's going to be an exceptionally greased Nashville crowd tonight for what probably will be about a 10-9 puck drop. Life in the Central Division when you get those national games. No surprise that the Avalanche minus 208. We were kicking around these games earlier in the lock shop. Any thoughts on a couple outcomes tonight that you're liking, Jake? I'm looking at Ottawa. They have to win tonight. I mean, they're on the verge, if they lose a couple more, of really wasting everything they did while Tkachuk was out. Hard to go against Vegas the way they're rolling right now in New York. And we looked about, as far as upsets go tonight, either Anaheim at even money or Boston at plus 110, a couple games that stood out to me.
Yeah, listen, I don't mind that Boston number, like you mentioned, at plus 110. I don't mind Montreal minus 114 either. I don't know if you're the type of guy that wants to go against the power of Tampa, but looks like Dobish is going to get the nod for Montreal. I don't trust Montembeault if it was him, but I don't even know who Tampa's going to start. Right now, it's unconfirmed Brandon Halverson. I don't know much about Brandon Halverson. Doesn't look like he's had a start in the NHL this season from what I can see. So that one's intriguing to me at a slight favorite at home in Montreal. Yeah, like you mentioned, the Ducks. I think either one of those underdogs. I mean, Boston line just moved up to plus 106 now, so they might know what we know in that you're getting a pretty strong number there.
How about
this? I mean, I think you can't go wrong with the plus money on Avalanche puck line, but I think the last time I included that, they didn't get it done, so maybe we hold off on that one.
You know what? That one tonight is probably you got plus 117 on the Avs puck line, eh? Eesh. That's tough.
I know. I looked at the last one. They played 3-0 win for the Avs. And that was back in November, late November. Avs win 3-0. Blackwood made 35 saves in the shutout.
They've won their last two games, but not covered the puck line after doing it for I think 9 of 10 games or something like that. But I'll tell you what, why don't we throw this up in the combo cards tonight? Let's take both of the dogs. Let's take the Ducks.
Okay.
Let's take the Bruins, and we'll add the Senators in there. So Sens at minus 143 right now, Boston plus 106, and the Ducks plus 101. That'll be just over 6-1 before a boost.
Okay, so Ducks, Bruins, and Sens.
All in the money line. Get some wins. And hopefully the Jets can inspire some confidence, and we'll have a nice same gamer against the Bruins coming off a win tonight for the Winnipeg Jets. Jake, big night for the WST Poker crew tomorrow. Our first Costa Rica qualifier at 8 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, let's get as many people in there as possible. You're going to have a chance to get in that first chance to get in that Costa Rica qualifier final. And then if you get to that tournament and you find a way to get through there, you might be headed to Costa Rica in the new year. So really exciting times for the poker crew at WST. I'm fired up. I'll probably keep an eye on what's happening over there.
We've had a lot of feedback from folks that have been meaning to get in. They're like, I'm definitely coming in right now. Again, those dates tomorrow.
This is the time. If you've been thinking about it, you've been talking about it, this is the time to get in.
And it's all our regular tourneys. I mean, like the money will be paid out the same way. The bounties will be the same way on myself, Hammer, and Remis. But there's a pretty big carrot. If you can hang around until that final table and be in the top 4, you'll be one win away from a trip with us down to Costa Rica for the Poker Festival and what is an amazing, amazing week. As always, when Coolbet's putting together trips, it is first class. Jake, enjoy the games tonight. We'll look forward to that, getting up in the combo cards, and we'll ride with it. Hopefully get a win. And by the way, shout out to us. Broke a little bit of a slump. We got that prop parlay.
Got one done.
Great pick on the Jonathan Taylor under. The James Cook was a no-brainer over receiving yards. And then the one thing we knew was going to happen against Houston was Mahomes was going to be running around a lot, and he cashed in. So that was a nice one, just about 7-1, which made up for a couple of tough losses on the weekend when it came to the National Football League. We'll look forward to catching up with Patty a little later on and talking to you Friday morning as we get into Week 15 of WST winners and our picks against the spread here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great time tonight, pal. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks. Last note, NBA Cup tonight. Raptors are playing 5.5-point underdogs if you want a piece of that under the NBA Cup tab. They're playing the Knicks tonight. So I jumped on them spread. I sprinkled the money line as well. See what happens.
The Raptors are home dogs?
No, I guess it is a home game. I don't know if they're traveling yet because I know I don't know. I wish I would have had more information for you going in. I know the last semis and finals is played out in Vegas, but I think they might actually be at home tonight for the quarter. It's a quarterfinal game in the at Scotiabank tonight. So 5.5-point home dogs. The Knicks got them pretty good the last time out, but we'll see. NBA Cup, you never really know where you're going to get.
What's the Raps money line here? Plus 165.
Yeah,
I listened to that
number.
last game. It was a couple Sundays ago that they got smoked by the Knicks, and they said, well, we'll see them in there. I'm adding it to the card tonight. Raps money line, plus 165. You have a good one, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too. Later, boys.
Good stuff. All right, there's Jake Bowen-Moss. You can give him a follow at Jake Bowen-Moss, and, of course, at CoolBet Canada. More details on the poker events coming up tomorrow, December 22nd, and Jan 7th. Those are the 3 dates where you can qualify for the Jan 12th final for the Costa Rica trip. All right, we have been teasing this, but now let's get into it. Bombers' schedule is out. Now, Remis, have you played this video game that they've put together? The Bombers continue to amaze with some of the things they do with their social team. I thought it was a joke when they'd actually said that right off the bat, but they actually did make a little video game that fans can actually play. I saw Schnitzy talking about it in the chat.
Yeah, I played it. First of all, I want to say my biggest pet peeve online is like release videos, like jersey release videos or schedule release videos. I don't care. Just give me a picture with it. I don't need to watch a 5-minute video for the reveal.
What do you mean? That's the Super Bowl for social teams.
Yeah, I don't care. It's not for me.
You don't support your local social team?
Come on. I do. But I want to know, I'll watch it after. I don't need to see, like, if you're teasing, like, the Jets are going to tease a new jersey release video. I don't need to watch 2 minutes of teases for the release to be at the end. Same with schedule release. I can see it like this with my eyes. I don't need a video to watch the whole thing. Anyways, they put out this schedule. This is actually pretty awesome, though. So they put out this thing. Bombers schedule run. Click to play. You move around. I tested it out. Now, it doesn't say like the dates or anything, but there are like a lot of funny jokes making fun, at the expense of the other teams. So you want me to hit go here?
Yeah. Let's give it a bit of a run.
This is like a old school, like regular Nintendo game. So
8-bit action.
I guess this is BC. And you just move your guy. I'm Zach Polaris. Move him around and take out the other team. So it says maybe next year, this is our time. That's the BC lines. Now, do you have the actual schedule?
Yes, I do. You keep going through this as I do the schedule.
Okay, I'm going to turn on the
music.
music.
Week 1. That's preseason. Week 1, it's Winnipeg at Calgary.
This is
Week
BC.
2. Where's BC?
So it looks like, is this not BC? It says find Stanley to unlock the next level. So I found Stanley Bryan. He's here. Okay, looks like Toronto. It says looking for a new coach. Still counts as a home game, it says. And I'm just clicking throwing footballs at all their players. So you got every time you defeat them all, you got to find Stanley to unlock the next level. This is Hamilton. Check this out, though. This ring looks like it's from the 90s. Oh, I'm taking
This
down.
ring looks like it's from the 90s.
And now it says, who can be signed from Winnipeg next year for Hamilton? That's a good one, too.
Let me just say that the prominent usage of Stanley Bryant in this gives me optimism that his Hall of Fame career is going to be continuing.
Was that the Easter egg here?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, would you keep on having to find Stanley if he wasn't going to be on the Bombers this season?
It's true.
Let me just say, my Stanley Bryant meter
here
turned up right now.
The Red Blacks have a participation trophy for their schedule. I mean, look, they got Lumberjack. This is awesome. They got Lumberjack. And then this is some type of boss. I don't know who this is.
It got really loud, man.
I can't really control it for you, but I turned it down.
Okay, can you turn it down?
Yeah. Hold on.
There we are.
Oh, you can hear that?
Oh, yeah. It's cranking loud in the thing. It might have been blowing some people off. So while Remis plays this game, here's the schedule, gang. The opening game of the season, we have a couple preseason games in Sask, home to BC. The Bombers started off June 5th, Friday night in Calgary. Home opener, June 11th, Thursday. Any way you can just mute that?
You can. I turned it off for you.
That's perfect. So home opener, Thursday, June 11th, my dad's birthday, up against the Ticats. Now, we asked yesterday, would the CFL plan a bye week so Zach Collaros could go to Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's wedding? Maybe better yet, the Bombers playing on the 11th. Do you think? That's super loud, dude. But Remo, the Bombers are playing Thursday, June 11th. And I would imagine there'll be an early morning flight for Zach out to the wedding, followed by the bye week. And this is big for the Canadian Football League to be represented at the wedding of the century. And you would have to think that Zach will be there. So I was happy about that on a very strange side note. Get that win in the home opener and then go enjoy the wedding of your good friends Travis and Taylor. Bye week next up. Bombers then have another Thursday game in June. Edmonton Elks on June 25th. They hit the road to Hamilton on Saturday, July 5th. Then back home to take on the Argos July 10th. Road game in Ottawa Sunday, July 19th. And then this is interesting. 3 straight home games. Friday, July 24th, Calgary. Thursday, July 30th, BC. A bye week. And then a home Friday, August 14th to Ottawa. They go a full month without a road game. The next road game, August 21st, Friday in Edmonton. Back home Friday, August 28th against the Alouettes. Labor Day Classic in Regina, September 6th, followed by the Banjo Bowl, September 12th in Winnipeg against the Riders. Bye week, then home to the Argos, September 25th. It's the second home game to the Argos. Obviously, the Argos are playing their road game, their quote-unquote home game here in Winnipeg. And then October 3rd, road game Saturday in Montreal. Final home game of the year is October 10th. Against the Stamps, and the Bombers finished up with 2 on the road. Friday, October 16th in Edmonton, Friday, October 23rd in BC. So 3 of the last 4 games are on the road, but for the most part, Remis, a very home-heavy schedule, even more so because the Bombers are at home 10 times and on the road 8, thanks to the Argos not wanting to find other places to play their games.
Yeah, and just at the days of the week, 3 Thursday games, 5 Friday games, 2 Saturday games at home, buys in week 3, 10, and 16. And it could be a big finish to the end of the season, 3 straight games against the West. And, you know, I was really disappointed. The first date I looked at for the schedule was, is there going to be a Stampede Bowl rematch? Because the Bombers got embarrassed in the Stampede Bowl last year with Calgary raising the trophy. and they will be defending their Stampede Bowl title against Toronto. I guess they wanted a guaranteed win or something. They didn't want to lose.
I was disappointed with that. I wanted the Bombers to get another crack at the Stampede Bowl. I was hoping that would just be Winnipeg at Calgary every year, the Stampede Bowl.
Do they want people to attend?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you did that either with the Riders or the Bombers, even BC, I would say Edmonton, but obviously they've got their home and home at Labor Day. But overall, pretty good schedule. I mean, the Thursday games, there's 3 of them, all earlier on in the year. There'll be a lot of people taking Fridays off on those dates. But a bunch of other Fridays. No Sunday home games, which I like. I don't mind a road game on Sunday. But I think traditionally we've seen that the Bombers do their best work. Friday night, the Thursday night games have been very well. I mean, every game sold out last year, so kind of hard to nitpick between the dates. But overall, pretty darn good schedule. And with the signing of Ontario Wilson and some other good news coming forth, Mike O'Shea back, we can kind of move past, much like my Chiefs are going to have to do, move past a very disappointing season that wasn't up to their standards this year and try and get back to that championship level of play in the 2026 season starting June 5th in Calgary against the Stamps.
Yeah, there's fully in the CFL offseason now, seeing a number of transactions. Montreal signed Davis Alexander to an extension. Edmonton re-upping Cody Fajardo for 1 year. And there was some talk in our chat if the Bombers, who need help on the O-line, could get Jamarcus Hardrick back, but he signed with the Grey Cup champion Saskatchewan Roughriders. So we'll have to wait and see if there's other transactions. It was Darren Cameron, Director of Public and Player Relations for the Blue Bombers, which Jeff noted this earlier, this tweet he had. Great to have Ontario here for many years to come. The schedule out today, and a lot of work going into more positive news in the coming days. And you noted having Stanley Bryant as a prominent feature in the schedule release video game. Is that just a little Easter egg of those more positive news to come in the coming days?
I would think so. I wouldn't be surprised. As I said, my and maybe this is just, I mean, why wouldn't you use somebody else if Stanley Bryant wasn't going to come back? And that would be amazing. Even at his age, he's still one of the best in the game, and the hole he would leave would be absolutely massive. So if the Bombers' big stand is back, that would be good news. We'll wait on that. I certainly would expect Nick Dembski to get re-signed. Sounds like Brady Oliveira, at least early on, is going to test free agency and see what happens. So that may be less certain, but I'm sure DC will be rolling out some more signings in the coming days. But in the meantime, the schedule is out. One other thing to note, Bomber, we were talking about the Heritage game next year at Princess Auto Stadium, Reem. And I guess that sort of plays into why the Bombers' last home game is October 10th. That'll give them a couple weeks to, get everything set up for the hockey game, which is going to be on the 26th of October, and then changed over if the Bombers can play well enough to earn themselves a home playoff date. So that certainly would sort of tie into all of that. But I did read in the press release about the Heritage game that Bomber members, like Bomber season ticket holders, I think are going to get an opportunity for tickets for the Heritage Classic as well. So I'm sure Jet season ticket holders will get first crack, Bomber season ticket holders as well. And maybe that'll keep a few more of the Habs fans out of the game for the big outdoor game next year. We can talk about that before. But it is getting late. We've had a real busy show. Game tonight, so we do want to get this podcast up so people can listen to before today's game. Tomorrow we'll be all over it. Is Murat on tomorrow, or is it Ken?
Ken's coming on tomorrow, Murat Friday. So Ken, we full recap, and we can discuss his latest in the Free Press that Jeff mentioned, where he said close to must win on this homestand.
I mean, listen, Ken, of Kenny and Rennie, we love them both. Ken is usually less for kind of hyperbole and hot takes. I mean, if anything, that's what makes their shows fun. Rennie will throw a lot of stuff out there, and Ken, is conservative on a lot of these things and timing. But even Ken, if you listen to the show after the game in Edmonton, I mean, time is ticking right now, and this is a crucial week for the Winnipeg Jets. You got the Bruins in here on Thursday, Ovi and the Caps on Saturday, which I believe is going to be Nino Niederreiter's 1,000th game, assuming he plays the next two. Ottawa on Monday, but tonight it is the Dallas Stars, a very familiar foe. Puck drops just after 7 o'clock tonight. And we'll look forward to seeing many of you down at the rink this evening. Thanks to Stephen Ellis, Jake Boland-Moss, Jeff Hamilton, and Owen Newkirk for joining the program today. Make sure to join us tomorrow for a full episode with the latest on the Winnipeg Jets, reaction from tonight, coaches, players, and more. And Ken Wiebe stops by to chop it all up. That is going to do it for us. Thanks to all the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day, and all of you, especially all of you joining us live on YouTube. Shout out to you podcast listeners. Enjoy the game, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.